Chapter 554. Beep, beep, beep. On the ground struck by the lightning that fell from the sky, traces of electric arcs crawled like snakes. They constantly flowed around, stirring up frequent electric currents that made one's scalp tingle. After these electric currents on the ground crawled aimlessly for a while, they converged on Noah's body, as if they were guided by an invisible hand. They followed Noah's feet, climbed up his body, and mixed with the electric arcs on his body, making the electric currents even more powerful. Just as Guinevere said, Noah was extremely special among all the god-slayers. Among other things, Noah had an advantage that the other god-slayers did not have in terms of the enhancement of their authority. Pandora said that the god-slayers could only become stronger in actual combat. The more battles they fought, the more opportunities the authority of the god-slayers had to be enhanced. That was why Warban and Luo Hao, who had lived the longest, were so ridiculously powerful. After all, Warban and Luo Hao, who had lived for at least 200 years, must have fought many battles. Coupled with the fact that the god-slayers could only become stronger in actual combat, it was natural that the two demon kings would be so strong. Compared to the other god-slayers, apart from being able to become stronger in actual combat, Noah's authority had also been integrated into his authority. Even when he wasn't fighting, Noah's authority would slowly increase. That was to say, Noah was becoming stronger almost all the time. Of course, the increase of his authority was one thing, and whether he could master these authority was another. In this regard, Noah could only gradually master his authority through actual combat. After 3 months of battles, Noah had a full grasp of the authority of the 10 incarnations. Just like the current thunder incarnation, Noah, who used this incarnation, could retract the thunder and lightning used to attack before, and add it to the newly added thunder and lightning, making the power of thunder and lightning stronger. This was one of the manifestations of the thunder incarnation being fully mastered. In addition, like the phoenix incarnation, Noah could no longer only use seraphic speed like before, but he could control the activation and deactivation of seraphic speed. By switching seraphic speed on and off, Noah could enter seraphic speed when he wanted to move, and deactivate seraphic speed when he wanted to attack to ensure the accuracy of the attack. Not only that, but during the attack, Noah could also suddenly activate seraphic speed again, turning the launched attack into a seraphic speed attack. In this way, even super-fast attacks in the seraphic speed state could become possible. Although during the activation and deactivation of seraphic speed, there was an extremely short moment when the opponent could take advantage of the opportunity to dodge, it was still better than being unable to attack in the seraphic speed state. The key to this seraphic speed ability lies in the switching between the activated and deactivated state. Now Noah could also grasp this key point very well, and use the Phoenix incarnation incisively and vividly. The rest of the incarnations were in the same situation, and they had been well controlled by Noah. Even, Noah found a surprise from some of the incarnations. For example, the elf incarnation could not only heal injuries, but also had the hidden effect of restoring spirit and spell power. As for the rest of the clones, they more or less had other hidden effects, which were discovered by Noah. As for what those effects were, it would be revealed later. Noah, who had a strong electric current flowing on his body, looked at the place in front of him where smoke and dust were stirred up by the lightning attack from the sky. A strange light flashed in his eyes. He waved his hand, and a faint spell power turned into a breeze, blowing away the smoke and dust. As a result, a bottomless pit appeared in front of Noah. As for Perseus, he had probably turned into ashes. Noah clearly felt that his attack hit Perseus without any deviation, and he even felt that under the attack of the lightning, Perseus's aura gradually weakened from strong to weak, and finally extinguished like a candle flame. In such a situation, Perseus could not still be alive. However, Noah did not relax at all. In the past 3 months, Noah had also encountered 2 or 3 gods and fought with them. In the end, Noah emerged victorious in every battle against the 2 or 3 gods. But in the end, Noah did not even gain a single authority. That was because when he thought that he had killed the god, the other party escaped with an inexplicable power, and some even directly resurrected. Therefore, Noah did not think that the god was so easy to kill. The most important thing was that Noah still did not feel that he had usurped Perseus's authority. In other words, Perseus was not dead yet. No, dead should be dead. But if the other party was resurrected, it would not be strange at all. Perseus is also Mitra, and Mitra is the sun god. Noah frowned. Then Perseus should have the authority of resurrection. Gods who were related to the sun generally had the authority of resurrection. The sun would rise in the morning, bringing light and life to the earth, and then set in the west at night, falling into silence. It could still rise the next day. This phenomenon itself had the meaning of rebirth. Just like the symbol of the snake that represented the earth goddesses, snakes would hibernate in winter and wake up in spring. They would constantly shed their skin, which meant that they were immortal. Therefore, gods who were related to the sun and snakes could generally be resurrected. It was a violation of the rules. However, resurrection did not mean that he was in perfect condition. Even if he could be resurrected, Perseus should at least be in a seriously injured state. Noah immediately closed his eyes and activated his perception ability. After scanning the surroundings seriously, he helplessly opened his eyes. Did he run away? It was precisely because of this situation that Noah did not increase his authority in the past 3 months. Go back and let Erica and Liliana find Perseus. Also check if Yerek, Lancelot, and Guinevere are dead. Although that was what he said, Noah did not think that these guys would die so easily. Noah understood how difficult it was to kill a god. Noah also understood how difficult it was to kill a god slayer, who shared the same status as a god. In short, whether it was a god slayer or a god of disobedience, they were a group of guys with extremely tenacious vitality. With such a thought in his mind, Noah maintained the state of thunder incarnation. His body once again turned into a bolt of lightning, flew up, and fled into the distance. At the same time that Noah left, a burst of darkness emerged from the distance and turned into a petite figure. The dark snake eyes stared at the bolt of lightning in the distance, and a faint smile slowly appeared on Athena's face. Only then can you be worthy of being my nemesis. With such a sentence, Athena turned her gaze to the bottomless pit, and the faint smile gradually turned into a sneer. Perseus, the steel that appeared was actually him. No wonder the hatred in this concubine's heart was so strong even before he appeared, to the point that this concubine did not hesitate to join hands with the enemy of fate. That's fine. I'll play hide and seek with you a little. With that said, another burst of darkness emerged from Athena's body and covered her petite body, and then she disappeared. Next, Athena and Perseus, the snake goddess and the steel hero, this pair of mortal enemies, will play a game of cat and mouse in the dark of Nabali. One is a goddess who has lost her symbol and has not regained her identity as the Trinity. The other is a hero who has lost his life, has just been resurrected, and has not regained his peak state. Who would emerge victorious in this game of cat and mouse? Or will it end with no one winning? No one knows. Because of the situation at Mount Vesuvius, Erica and Liliana should not have returned yet. Even if he went back now, he should not be able to see the two girls. Then there was no need for Noah to be anxious. On the way back to Diana's old bookstore, he directly canceled the Thunder incarnation. As he walked forward, he took out his phone and sent an email to Alice to explain the situation here and see what Alice thought. To Noah's surprise, when he returned to the old bookstore, a person was waiting for him. It was Yerek. Chapter 555. In the bustling streets of the old city, the noise was like that of a wet market. Perhaps it was because someone had used some sort of barrier or magic around Mount Vesuvius. Looking at Mount Vesuvius from here, Mount Vesuvius still looked the same as before. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Therefore, no one noticed that not long ago, Mount Vesuvius had almost erupted. If someone had noticed, this place wouldn't be as peaceful as it was now, right? In the corner of the old city street, in Diana's second-hand bookstore, a young man with black hair, black eyes, fair skin, a slender figure, and a straight back was standing in front of a bookshelf like an ordinary tourist. He was holding a book and carefully reading it. No one knew that this young man was actually a god-slaying king who could change the situation of the entire world. No one knew that another king was standing at the entrance of the second-hand bookstore, mixed in with the crowd. Looking at the uninvited guest, he didn't say anything. He just lifted his foot and walked into the bookstore. Yarek didn't seem to notice Noah's arrival at all. He continued to stand there and read his book. It was as if he was talking to himself, spitting out such words. Although there's no collectible value, the books here are quite complete. Some of them even record some interesting things which surprised me. It's a pity that the owner isn't here now. If you want to buy, you'll have to wait obediently. Noah responded as if he was talking to himself. Of course, if it's you, you can actually borrow. After all, it's not the first time. There aren't many things in this world that require me to borrow. At least, it's not something that can be bought with money. Yarek didn't mind Noah's silent mockery and raised his head from the book in his hand. You're finally here. You're much slower than I thought. It can't be helped. Noah leaned against the bookstore counter as if nothing had happened. Even if it wasn't my intention, for the sake of the people of Nabali, I still have to clean up the mess left by someone. You're surprisingly responsible, Yarek said without any comment. He put the book in his hand back on the shelf, then turned around and looked at Noah, who was leaning against the counter with his arms crossed. However, thanks to you, my plan has completely failed. Hearing this, Noah's heart skipped a beat. Needless to say, the reason why Yarek came to Nabali and spent so much effort to steal the divine pillar of Hera was because of Genivia. In fact, Yarek did use the divine pillar of Hera as bait and set up a trap on Mount Vesuvius. Presumably it was to bury Genivia. But now, it seemed that Yarek's plan failed because of Noah's intervention. As far as I know, you don't seem to be on good terms with the god ancestor. I don't believe that you don't know my intention. So, why don't you just watch from the side and come out when everything is over? Yarek said in a cold voice. If it were me, I'd do that without hesitation. It's the easiest and most efficient way. I don't have to waste any extra effort to get rid of my opponent. Isn't that great? Oh, Noah said with a half-smile. Is that what a thief who stole our item should say? At least, I think it's worth it to get rid of a troublesome opponent by sacrificing a useless god relic, Yarek said matter-of-factly. Of course, it's useless to say so much. Since the plan has failed, it'll be difficult to find another opportunity to get rid of Genivia in one go. Saying this, Yarek's tone didn't carry much annoyance. A well-thought-out plan was ruined just like that, causing his sworn enemy to flee. But Yarek didn't seem to be angry at all. Instead, like a robot, he threw the past failure to the back of his mind and began to plan for the future. Should he say that this man was too straightforward? Or was his personality so twisted that he had lost his humanity? Or perhaps a little of both? Noah could not help but laugh. Are you so sure that your plan can get rid of Genivia? Don't forget that Lancelot is with the god ancestor. If you didn't intervene, the possibility of getting rid of Genivia and Lancelot is more than 90%. Yarek said confidently. Even if my series of arrangements can't do anything to them, they will still be lured into the volcano by me. At the very least, I can still detonate the entire volcano and make it erupt. Lancelot is the hero of steel. Yarek, who did not know what dangerous words he had just said. Fire can forge strong steel, and it can also melt strong steel. If that volcano erupts, even Lancelot would be buried, right? I see. Noah sneered as if he had seen through Yarek's thoughts. Because the last resort was to directly detonate the entire volcano and make it erupt, you naturally prepared an escape route for yourself. It was this escape route that allowed you to survive the final lightning strike I sent to the inside of the volcano and escape, right? You're really smart. You even guessed that. Yarek paused for a moment and then nodded. Yes, that's how I escaped. Lancelot has the authority to control lightning. I guess you can't do anything to him, right? I didn't launch the attack to kill you, Noah said calmly. I was just returning the favor. Yarek was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was full of mockery. You really are a god slayer. No matter how wise you are, You can't hide your reckless actions. Noah laughed, and his laughter was unusually sarcastic. Please let me return those words to the Black Prince, who didn't hesitate to detonate the volcano in order to bury his opponent. He didn't care about what would happen to Nabali. Yerek was speechless, and his face was full of displeasure. Although they had only met twice, and both times had been very unpleasant, Noah had long seen that this man, Yerek, had a special characteristic. He had always thought that he was different from other godslayers, and was very unwilling to be compared to other godslayers. However, Yerek was still a godslayer. Otherwise, detonating the volcano, or something like that, was absolutely impossible for ordinary people to think of. Noah did not believe that Yerek was not aware of what he had done. Therefore, Yerek was just running away, stubbornly holding on, and stubbornly refusing to admit it. From this point of view, this man was not straightforward at all. Forget it, that kind of thing is fine no matter what. Noah glanced at Yerek. Tell me why you are here. I don't believe that you came to me specifically to complain to me. Rather than believe that you are here to complain, I'd rather believe that you are here to seek revenge. Although my plan failed because of your interference, it was also my mistake not to consider this possibility. There is no revenge to be sought. Yerek raised his eyes and looked directly at Noah. I just came to ask you, how is Perseus? Guinevere's target was the steel hero, who had appeared this time, Perseus. Yerek's target was Guinevere, and he was also interested in the guy called the Last King. Therefore, for Yerek, Perseus's situation was indeed the most important thing to him. Thinking of this, Noah's eyes turned, the corner of his mouth raised, and he said straightforwardly, Let's exchange information. Ask me a question. Then I'll ask you a question too. Sure. Yerek agreed readily. Let's exchange information. If it were people like Warban, Luo Hao, and Tony, if they wanted to get any information, they would definitely use the most direct means to get it, and would never think of any exchange. In this regard, Yerek had to admit that Noah was indeed different from other godslayers, and would not think of everything in battle. If it was easier to achieve the goal, then there would be no need to fight. This was Yerek's creed. Therefore, Noah's approach was unexpectedly quite satisfactory to Yerek. This man was indeed a strategist. Chapter 556. It was not until it was dark that Erica and Liliana returned. Diana is still at Mount Vesuvius. As soon as she returned, Liliana looked at Noah with a sorrowful expression and complained. In order to cover up the changes in Mount Vesuvius, Diana will be there with the witches of Nabali. She probably won't be back anytime soon. Mount Vesuvius was first completely transformed by the power of Yerek's great labyrinth. Then, because of Lancelot and Guinevere's relationship, the entire crater of the volcano was tightly sealed. Later, it was destroyed by Noah's all-out lightning strike, which almost caused the volcano to collapse. After suffering so many blows, Mount Vesuvius had long changed its shape. It was believed that anyone who lived in Nabali would notice that something was wrong with it. What was more serious was that because of Noah's lightning strike, Lancelot, and Yerek's battle inside the volcano, Mount Vesuvius seemed to have really been activated, entering a stage where it would not be strange for it to erupt at any time. In order to prevent this from happening, and to prevent the ordinary residents from discovering the changes in Mount Vesuvius, Diana led the witches of Nabali to work their day and night in an attempt to cover up all traces. Fortunately, Yerek had already left, and Mount Vesuvius, which had been transformed by the power of the Great Labyrinth, had been restored to its original state. There would no longer be any messy traps, fog, or thunderclouds to prevent others from entering. With the witches of Nabali's ability, they should be able to restore Mount Vesuvius to its original state. I knew it. It's definitely not a good thing when two godslayers clash, Erica said calmly, as if she had already expected this. Fortunately, the battle this time began on the volcano. If it had happened in the city like before, it would have been really troublesome. If possible, I really hope the king can be more mindful of the surroundings, Liliana said in a rare tone of helplessness. Although it is the duty of a knight to assist the king, I really hope that there is less of this kind of aftermath work. Alright, stop complaining. Noah smiled bitterly. That guy Yarek was planning to make the volcano erupt directly. He's already very lucky to be able to stop that. Just like Princess Alice said, the Black Prince's personality is twisted. Erica expressed her opinion. At first glance, he seems very rational, but once he enters combat mode, he will become unscrupulous and carry out the combat process based on tactics. For this, he will not hesitate to use everything around him. He is indeed a god slayer. If this comment was heard by Yarek, he would definitely refute it with all his might, right? Unfortunately, Yarek had already left. According to Yarek himself, he planned to simply give up on sniping Guinevere. The previous careful plan couldn't bury the god ancestor, so there probably won't be any more chances. What I care about now is whether Perseus is the last king that Guinevere is looking for. Although, after getting your information, I already have some guesses, so I won't participate in your game next. After exchanging information during the day, Yarek left such a sentence, and left without any reluctance. According to the information Noah received from Yarek, Lancelot would not be able to participate in the battle next. Without the help of the patron saint, Guinevere would not be able to participate in the battle between the god slayer and the god of disobedience. Perseus was in hiding because of his injury. The situation was indeed in Noah's favor. As long as he found the seriously injured Perseus and killed him, this trip to Nabali would be over. However, before that, Noah still had one more thing to do. Recalling the question he asked during the day, and the answer Yarek gave him, Noah's thoughts turned sharply. After a while, he made up his mind. Lily. Noah turned his eyes to Liliana. You are a witch, and you have mastered many common and convenient witch spells. Can you find Guinevere? Find Lady Guinevere? Liliana was stunned for a moment. After hesitating for a moment, she shook her head. Lady Guinevere is the witch queen, the god ancestor of witches. She must have mastered more advanced witch spells than me, and will also have the means to resist witches. With my strength, it will be difficult to find the witch queen. What about Perseus? Noah continued to ask. Can you find a way to find Perseus? I'm not sure. Liliana answered hesitantly. If the hero left Nabali, then I can't do anything. But if he is still in Nabali, I can try. Noah's face relaxed, and the corners of his mouth slowly raised. Then you should be prepared to find Perseus. That guy must still be in Nabali. Why are you so sure? Erica asked rhetorically. In the past you have defeated several gods, but in the end, they all chose to fly away, or directly fall into a deep sleep, waiting for their injuries to recover. Perseus should also know that he is no match for you in a seriously injured state. Leaving Nabali and hiding temporarily to recover from his injuries is the right choice, right? No, Perseus must still be in Nabali. Noah made such an assertion directly. For many gods of disobedience, who have been swallowed by madness, retreating to recover from their injuries is definitely not a shameful thing, because after recovering from their injuries, they can carry out a fierce battle again. This is the value of the gods of disobedience. But Perseus, the god of disobedience, in addition to his usual battle lust, also attaches great importance to his identity as a hero. Therefore, he can allow himself to be defeated or even retreat, but he absolutely will not allow himself to fly away and escape from the battlefield. As a mythical hero, Perseus indeed had an extraordinary heroic spirit. He would not mind a temporary defeat, let alone retreat. However, in today's confrontation, Noah also saw that this so-called hero was extremely narcissistic. For Perseus, it was okay to be defeated or to retreat, but directly escaping should be unbearable for Perseus, right? Therefore, Perseus would definitely make a comeback. The problem was whether Noah would find Perseus before he recovered from his injuries and finish him off cleanly, or wait for Perseus to recover before appearing in front of Noah and starting a new battle. In other words, even if Perseus is recuperating, he will definitely hide in some corner of Nabali and will never escape from Nabali. Erica understood, because Nabali is the battlefield that Perseus thinks of, right? That's right. Noah shrugged. Since we already know this, let's hurry up and find Perseus, and get rid of him before he recovers from his injuries. Oh, Erica smiled teasingly. Don't you think this is despicable? We fought head-on, and I was the one who caused his injuries. I was just looking for the prey that I had injured and killed him. How is that despicable? Noah waved his hand. Besides, I can't do something as tiring as wait until the opponent recovers before having a fair fight. It's fine if it's another opponent, but this time, the opponent is the god of disobedience. For these gods, if we don't seize any opportunity to defeat them, we are simply letting them go on purpose. This is no different from insulting them, isn't it? Erica and Liliana both nodded in agreement. I will find God Perseus, Liliana vowed, but she soon had doubts. Then, what about Lord Guinevere? Don't worry. Noah showed a meaningful smile. If we want to find the mouse hiding in the dark, we can only let the cat, who is also good at moving in the dark. It is most suitable to give the task of finding Guinevere to her. Hearing Noah's words, Liliana was still puzzled, but Erica seemed to have thought of something and smiled sweetly. Soon after, Liliana returned to her room and began to make preparations. Erica also went to help. Looking at the backs of Erica and Liliana, Noah smiled, got up, and walked out of the used bookstore. Chapter 557. The bright moon hung high in the night sky, surrounded by stars, like a huge painting, very beautiful. The night view of Napoli was famous all over the world. It was not surprising that there would be such a beautiful moonlit night. Although the residents of Naples were used to this night sky, many people still admired it through the windows. Coupled with the beautiful city scenery, it really made many people feel at peace. No one knew that in the dark of this quiet city, a storm that mortals could not get involved in had been going on. Ignorance is bliss. This sentence was well displayed by the residents of Napoli. Under such a night sky, on a bridge near the sea in Napoli, the most orthodox god in the world was here. She was about 10 years old, and her slender body was dressed in a black formal dress. A quiet atmosphere pervaded the air around her as she stood on the bridge. However, she was looking down at the surface of the river below the bridge. Her sapphire-like eyes were filled with a solemn expression. The next second, Guinevere, who was looking at the water under the bridge, spoke softly. Her voice was light and full of frustration. I'm sorry, uncle, Guinevere couldn't find steel. Hearing Guinevere's words, a knight in white armor slowly appeared in front of Guinevere from the water at the bottom of the bridge. Lancelot, the famous knight of the lake in Celtic mythology. This god was not by Guinevere's side now, nor in the water. The image that was being projected now was only Lancelot's reflection. Don't worry, my beloved daughter, we have waited for so long, and now we don't mind waiting a little longer. But uncle, is Perseus really the king we are looking for? Guinevere looked a little absent-minded. If we finally confirm that Perseus is the king we are looking for, then we naturally don't mind wasting this time. But what if Perseus is not the king we are looking for? Then let's continue our search. Lancelot answered without hesitation. It is your mission to awaken the lazy lord and make him appear on this land once again. My mission is to protect my beloved daughter and wield my spear for my lord and his beloved daughter. Isn't this something that has been decided long ago? Uncle is right. Guinevere sighed. Both uncle and Guinevere were once followers of the king. If there is any trace of information about the king left in uncle's and my memories, there would be no need for us to search for the king's whereabouts. In the distant past, before becoming a god ancestor, Guinevere, who was a goddess, and Lancelot, who was a military god, had followed the last king to wander and fight in this land. Logically speaking, Lancelot and Guinevere should know the so-called last king, as well as they could. However, the reality was that neither Lancelot nor Guinevere had any memories related to the last king. Because Guinevere had reincarnated from a goddess to a god ancestor, she would lose all memories of her previous life after reincarnation, so there was no clue about the last king. And Lancelot didn't know the whereabouts of the last king because he didn't deliberately remember. As long as I can show the bravery of a military god, I can even forget the name and appearance of the master I served in the past. This is uncle, right? Hearing Guinevere's sigh, the White Knight said calmly as if it was a matter of course. That's right. Running in the field and waving my spear is what I want. The other things are just trivial things that have nothing to do with me. They are all factors that will make me slow and weak. So what harm is there in abandoning them? If ordinary humans heard Lancelot's words, they would most likely think it was ridiculous. In order to be able to fight without any distractions, he could abandon all factors that might affect him. He could even control his memories and let them disappear without any reluctance. This was simply a value that humans couldn't imagine. But the so-called God was such a thing. It was an existence that humans couldn't understand at all. Among them, Lancelot, the god of steel who didn't hesitate at all, was the most outstanding. If the man who once fought side by side with me dies on any battlefield, I just have to raise my sword, mourn his death, and feel proud of his glorious passing. Isn't that enough? Lancelot said without confusion. I'm sorry. If it weren't for my stubborn personality, I would have been able to find the monarch I served earlier. No, uncle, please don't say that. Guinevere looked at Lancelot's reflection on the water with sincere eyes. It is because of uncle's belief and ego that you can become the strongest steel, second only to the Lord. It's a pity that I still can't wield my spear to my heart's content and give the enemy a head-on blow. Lancelot's voice was still as calm as ever. If I could use my full strength, the Black Prince who killed the god wouldn't have made things so difficult for you. Hearing this, Guinevere couldn't help but feel annoyed. The last king that Lancelot and Guinevere served was a king with the title of the strongest steel, and also a hero who existed specifically to annihilate the god-slayers on the ground. Every time multiple god-slayers appeared on the ground, the last king would wake up and annihilate all the god-slayers on the ground, burying all the demon kings. The last king had killed countless god-slayers until now, and was known as the natural enemy of all god-slayers. Facing a god-slayer, he had never lost a battle. Serving this king, how could Lancelot, who was second only to him, be weak? If Lancelot could use his full strength, at least he wouldn't be entangled by Yarek like this. Unfortunately, Lancelot couldn't use his full strength now, and couldn't protect Guinevere for a long time. Because the Lancelot that appeared on the ground was not the god of disobedience that violated the myth, but just a god's shadow. When such a sentence echoed and drilled into Guinevere's ears, Guinevere's heart suddenly shrank into a ball, and he suddenly turned his head and looked at the source of the voice. A god appearing on the ground in order to protect a specific person. This is unheard of. Under Guinevere's gaze, a figure gradually came from the other side of the bridge, exposed to the bright moonlight, and entered Guinevere's line of sight. The reason why this incredible phenomenon became possible is that you, who used to be the goddess of earth, cast a great spell on Lancelot, turning the mythical Lancelot into the so-called guardian of the demon queen. The dark and deep pupils met Guinevere's gaze, and the newcomer suddenly smiled. However, because of the inexplicable shackles imposed on him, Lancelot can only appear on the ground for a short period of time when the god of the demon queen is in danger, and he can't use his full strength. Am I right? Guinevere couldn't help but take a step back, and his lips trembled slightly. Lord, Noah. The newcomer was Noah. It's really very difficult to find you. Noah narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Guinevere, who seemed a little flustered because of his sudden arrival, with amusement. If it weren't for the fact that we have an ally who can control the entire dark world, transform into an owl, and freely enter and leave the human world and the underworld, it would be really difficult to find you. In order to find Guinevere, Noah dragged out Athena, who was also looking for Perseus, and asked Athena for help to find Guinevere's location. As the god of earth, Guinevere's hidden means were indeed extraordinary. But after all, the god of earth was only a reincarnation of the goddess of earth, who died under certain conditions, and was the existence of the former goddess of earth after she fell. As the current goddess of earth, it was most appropriate for Athena to find god Guinevere. And Athena did not disappoint Noah. Almost half an hour after Noah asked for help, she immediately provided the location of Guinevere to Noah. Really, I've been looking for you for a long time. Noah raised his eyes, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. Then, lovely Miss God, how about spending some time with me? Chapter 558. During the day, when he encountered Lancelot on Mount Vesuvius, Noah's excellent perception ability gave him feedback that something was wrong with Lancelot. That feeling was as if Lancelot himself was not there at all. It was very empty and vague. Noah, who was very concerned about this, asked Yerek to tell him about Lancelot's information in exchange for Perseus's information, when Yerek proposed to exchange information. As an enemy of Guinevere, Yerek, who had confronted and fought against Guinevere countless times in the past, must have had a lot of dealings with Lancelot. And with Yerek's style, it was impossible for him not to have information about Lancelot. Noah's idea was correct. In the end, Yerek answered Noah's question, and Noah finally understood why Lancelot gave him such a strange feeling. Contrary to the myths, the god who appeared on the ground was the god of disobedience. However, Lancelot was not a rebellious god of disobedience. Instead, he was a god's shadow who could only appear on the ground for a short period of time when his guardian, the demon queen, needed help. Therefore, Noah felt that something was wrong with Lancelot, and Noah could also come to Guinevere so unscrupulously during the day, in order to shatter the divine pillar of Hera, and use the essence of the earth gathered in the divine pillar of Hera to attract the appearance of steel. Lancelot had already appeared for a long time. Therefore, unless Noah intended to attack Guinevere, who was the object of Lancelot's protection, and then stimulate the great protection spell that the goddess of earth once cast on Lancelot, Lancelot would not be able to appear on the ground at will for some time. After getting this information, Noah wanted to find Guinevere and come to Guinevere. Seeing Noah suddenly appear like this, Guinevere panicked at first, then suppressed the panic in her heart, lifted the corner of her skirt, bowed her head, and offered an elegant greeting to Noah. "I didn't expect you to come looking for Guinevere in the middle of the night. Guinevere is terrified. Even if you know that it's late at night, and there's only you and me here, there's no need to put on an act." Noah crossed his arms and said indifferently, "As I said, I just want you to spend some time with me. You don't have to worry that I'll attack you. Once I do, Lancelot will be able to manifest himself with the help of the great spell that's connected to you. What's there to worry about?" Upon hearing that, Guinevere calmed down completely. His every move was still elegant, but there was a trace of vigilance in his eyes when he looked at Noah. "So, what do you need Guinevere to do with you, my king?" Noah shifted his gaze to Guinevere with a malicious expression. "Actually, you should have something that I want." Guinevere's expression suddenly changed, and the vigilance in his eyes became stronger. Although Guinevere is just an insignificant god ancestor, after all, she was once the goddess of earth. She doesn't have much attachment to things in this world, so naturally, she doesn't have any valuable items. What does my king fancy? Well, I don't know, because I don't know what form it will exist in now. Noah's eyes flickered. But it will respond to me. Gaia and Aleia once said that the world would not refuse Noah's request. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to directly bestow power to Noah or grant him protection. But Noah could easily do something as illegal as choosing a timeline at will. So, as an incomplete world, would the world fragment refuse Noah's request? That should be impossible. After all, if that was the case, then the world fragment would return to Noah's hands with just one word from Noah. Why would Noah need to work hard to find it? However, just like those complete worlds, even if the world fragment could not respond to a request that was directly beneficial to Noah, it would at least respond to Noah's call. Since Noah had confirmed that the world fragment was with Guinevere, would the world fragment respond to his call when he was directly face to face with Guinevere? Noah didn't know, but Noah's extraordinary intuition told him that it was possible. "So did you hear my voice?" As if he was talking to a naughty child who was hiding, Noah spoke in a scolding tone. "If you can hear me, then don't hide anymore. Come out quickly." As soon as he finished speaking, in the vibration of space, a dazzling light suddenly bloomed from Guinevere's body. Wadash! Guinevere was taken aback. Immediately, as if she had noticed something, her pretty face changed dramatically, and she screamed without caring about her image. "That's impossible." Regardless of Guinevere's scream, The light that bloomed from Guinevere's body gradually converged. Inside, a container that was a little taller than Guinevere suddenly appeared. It was a container that looked like a large cup or vase. The container shone brightly, as if it was filled with something, and it overflowed from the top of the container. The overflowing thing was nothing else but spell power. Noah didn't expect Guinevere to have such a thing. However, Noah could clearly see that in the container, there was a piece of soft white radiance. Only half of the feather was floating inside the container. Guinevere seemed to be unable to see the broken feathers. She looked at the container that suddenly appeared, and her beautiful face turned pale. Why? Why did the Holy Grail appear without my call? The sudden appearance of the container called the Holy Grail seemed to have made Guinevere lose her calm, and even made Guinevere forget her usual elegance and shout at Noah. What did you do? What the hell did you do? I didn't do anything, Noah replied bluntly. It just responded to me. Impossible. Guinevere shook her head desperately. This Holy Grail is a divine relic that I, as the goddess of earth, sacrifice my immortal life to create. Only I am the rightful successor of the Holy Grail. How could the Holy Grail respond to you? Although I don't know if this thing called the Holy Grail is the famous holy relic in the Bible. If you feel uneasy about the Holy Grail responding to me, then you can rest assured. Noah curled his lips and smiled. It's not the Holy Grail that responded to me, but the thing inside the Holy Grail. The thing inside. Guinevere was stunned. Yes, it's the thing inside. Noah looked at Guinevere and said abruptly, So sorry, in order to take out the thing inside, this Holy Grail will be temporarily kept by me. Guinevere's heart skipped a beat. Just as she was about to react, in front of her, Noah's figure suddenly disappeared like a mirage. When she reappeared, Noah was already in front of Guinevere, or more accurately, in front of the Holy Grail. Looking at Guinevere's drastically changed eyes, the corners of his mouth curled up. If I attack you, it will stimulate the great spell that Lancelot used to protect you, forcing him to appear on the ground. So as long as I don't attack you, but this Holy Grail, then there won't be a problem, right? After saying that, Noah reached out and took the Holy Grail into his arms. I'll borrow this thing for now. Wait! Guinevere exclaimed. Wait, King! However, before Guinevere could shout, Noah held the Holy Grail, entered the seraphic speed world that he had just obtained after using the Phoenix incarnation, and disappeared in place. No! Guinevere quickly closed her eyes and called the Holy Grail. But she couldn't get a response from the Holy Grail. It was fine if it didn't return to Noah's hands, but once it returned to Noah's hands, it was impossible for the world fragment to leave Noah. In this way, the Holy Grail, that was hosted by the world fragment, could not respond to Guinevere's call. At that moment, Guinevere sat on the ground with a completely blank expression. What should I do? Chapter 559. In the quiet and deserted night, a gentle breeze slowly blew past, entering one of the rooms on the second floor of the second-hand bookstore with its windows wide open. It made the curtains move up and down, fluttering in the wind, appearing extremely ethereal and tranquil. Whoosh! A mirage-like phantom suddenly appeared with a strong gust of wind, flashing into the room amidst the violent movement of the curtains, bringing with it a burst of light and shadow. This room was the room Noah lived in on the second floor of Diana's second-hand bookstore. After returning to his room, Noah canceled the use of the Phoenix incarnation, undid the seraphic speed state, and withdrew from the world of seraphic speed. As soon as he undid the seraphic speed state, Noah felt a slight pain all over his body, making him frown and sigh helplessly. The seraphic speed, that surpasses everything, really isn't that easy to use. Now, Noah was already able to use the Phoenix incarnation's seraphic speed to the point of perfection. However, no matter how perfect it was, Noah was still unable to completely eliminate the burden on his body from the Phoenix incarnation's seraphic speed state. After all, it was a seraphic speed that no one could surpass. The burden on a human body to display such speed was indeed great. Yarek, on the other hand, was able to use the lightning spark authority to first transform his body into lightning, and then enter the state of seraphic speed to put an end to the burden of seraphic speed on his body. However, that kind of risk was actually very high. The effect of being able to turn into lightning seemed very powerful, but in fact that state's resistance to magic interference was very weak, and it was quite easy to get rid of it. At least for a god-slayer of the same type, as long as he casually used a method to break magic, he could immediately get rid of Yarek's lightning state. Even for humans, if several top magicians were to join forces and use a method to break magic, they could also get rid of Yarek's lightning state. Because of this, Yarek rarely turned into lightning during battle. The unlimited seraphic speed state of lightning was generally only used for hurrying, and could not really be used to prolong the battle. In other words, that day on Mount Vesuvius, Yarek seemed to have said that his electric petrification was quite incredible, but in fact, it was just a bluff. It was fine to scare people, but he definitely wouldn't dare to use it in a real battle. Just like in the battle between Noah and Perseus. In the process of using seraphic speed, once the Phoenix incarnation was nullified, Noah, who had retreated from the world of seraphic speed, would not be able to adjust to the flow of time around him. Perseus would find an opportunity and almost leave a fatal wound on him. If he exited the Godspeed world, his body would automatically adjust to the difference in the flow of time between the Godspeed world and the normal world. However, if he was suddenly forced out of the world of Godspeed, this adjustment would be ineffective, causing his body to stiffen. The enemy would seize the opportunity and defeat him in one fell swoop. Therefore, Yarek would not transform into lightning and enter the realm of Godspeed unless it was a special situation. In other words, for Yarek, the burden of Godspeed on his body was still there. Noah was naturally the same. Although Noah's body was still strong because of his regular exercise in the past, no matter how strong he was still a human body. At most, he could extend the time of using Godspeed, but the burden still existed. Now, if Noah kept using Phoenix, then 30 minutes would be his limit. Of course, this was a situation of continuous use. Noah could turn off Godspeed after using it for a period of time, and then continue to turn it on after his body had slowed down. That way, he could extend the time of using Godspeed even more. And this price, compared to the ability to surpass everything, was completely worth it. Noah didn't know that compared to Yarek, he was already very good. It must be known that once Yarek entered the state of Godspeed, his body would squeak fiercely for about 5 minutes. Moreover, his brain would cry out in grief to deal with the difference in the flow of time between the Godspeed world and the normal world. If he used it for more than 20 minutes, then when he stopped using Godspeed, Yarek would suffer a discomfort that was 100 times worse than jet lag, and his body would be unable to move. It could be seen that compared to Yarek, Noah's body was still considered strong. So Noah stood in place, waiting for the slight pain in his body to subside after a minute. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief, picked up the huge container in his hand, and put it on a desk in the room. The golden magic Holy Grail silently blossomed with resplendent light, illuminating the entire dusky room. Inside the Holy Grail, only Noah could see the broken feathers floating in the center, releasing a soft white light. Looking at the world fragment floating inside the Holy Grail, Noah couldn't help but smile. "I finally found you." After saying this, Noah was distressed again. But, how do I take the world fragment out of the Holy Grail? Although the world fragment was just floating in the center of the Holy Grail, it was easy to reach in and take it out. If that was possible, Noah would have done it long ago. Similar to Bo's situation, the world fragment was attached to the Holy Grail, instead of being stored inside it. In order to take the world fragment out, either the world fragment itself would have to leave the lodging state, or the Holy Grail would have to be destroyed. Destroy the Holy Grail. Noah frowned and couldn't help but talk to himself. If only gods were so easy to destroy, then that would be great. As a tool that was directly related to God, a god relic was generally indestructible. For example, the Gorgon stone could not be destroyed no matter what. There were also god relics that could be destroyed, like the god of Hera's pillar. However, although these god relics could be destroyed, some would automatically repair themselves, and some would reappear on the ground at a certain time, like the god of disobedience. In other words, Even if a god relic could be destroyed, people would only be able to destroy its form, but they would not be able to erase its existence. Was the Holy Grail in front of him the type that could not be destroyed? Or was it the type that could be destroyed? If it was the latter, then Noah would be able to retrieve the world fragment. Of course, if he did that, the Holy Grail, which was extremely famous in the world and sought after by countless people, would also be destroyed. No one knew when it would be repaired or reappear. However, Noah was not pursuing this famous Holy Grail, so naturally, he did not care whether the Holy Grail was good or bad. At that moment, Noah softly chanted a short part of the spirit of words. The Lord said, "Sinners will be punished, their backs will be crushed, their bones, their hair, their brains will be dug out, and their blood and mud will be trampled on together." Noah's fifth clone of the 10 clones was the golden wolf. Once this clone was used, it could transform the curse power into a physical form and give Beo's consciousness in Noah's soul as a soul clone, allowing Beo to obtain a physical form and appear on the ground. However, Noah did not awaken Beo, nor did he use the curse power to form Beo's body to make Beo appear. He only turned the stone plate in his heart to the image of the golden wolf's clone. This was also one of the ways that Noah had mastered using the golden wolf's clone in the past 3 months of battle. In this state, although Beo would not be summoned, Noah could use the ability to destroy everything that could only be used when using the golden wolf's clone. Buzz. A beautiful golden light burned from Noah's body like a flame. Raising his hand that was surrounded by golden light, Noah placed his palm that could destroy everything directly on the Holy Grail. Buzz buzz. The beautiful golden light immediately covered the entire Holy Grail. Buzz buzz buzz. At this moment, the Holy Grail seemed to have sensed some danger. The golden light on its body increased greatly, and then it returned to its normal state, allowing Noah's crushing power to cover its body. Under such circumstances, the golden light that could directly shatter an entire mountain, or even space itself, enveloped the Holy Grail. Unexpectedly, it couldn't even peel off a layer of paint from the Holy Grail. Seeing this, Noah knew. The Holy Grail in front of him was an immortal and indestructible God relic. In other words, destroying the Holy Grail and taking out the world fragment would not work. Sigh. Noah sighed softly and retracted his hand that was surrounded by golden light. I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Chapter 560. The next day, when Erica and Liliana came to Noah's room, Noah was already sitting in front of the desk where the Holy Grail was placed. He had been staring at the Holy Grail for the entire night. Erica was stunned when she saw the Holy Grail. She did not seem to know what the huge golden container was. Liliana, on the other hand, trembled. Her pupils suddenly flashed with a dim light. The wisdom of the goddess, the end of the immortal life, the plunderer of the earth's essence, the immortal god relic. Liliana's spirit vision was triggered because she saw the Holy Grail. However, that was not strange. The European, which was originally a witch who worshipped the goddess of the earth in ancient times, studied inspiration, and listened to the goddess prophecies. The Holy Grail was a god relic that Guinevere, who was once the goddess of the earth, sacrificed her own immortal life to create. In this way, as a god relic closely related to the goddess of the earth, the Holy Grail's curse power and spiritual energy would stimulate the witch's power. It was not strange that it could increase the witch's chances of receiving the wisdom and revelation of the gods. Therefore, Liliana used the triggered spirit vision to see the origin of the Holy Grail. She was shocked when she exited the state of spirit vision. Why is the Holy Grail here? You mean that's the Holy Grail? Erica was shocked when she heard Liliana's words. The Holy Grail that even the Black Prince is after? Noah, who had not slept the entire night, was also stunned by Erica's words. Do you mean that Yerek is after the Holy Grail too? You don't know. Liliana's expression had a hint of suspicion. The Black Prince Yerek's father was a scholar of the occult. He once died in pursuit of the Holy Grail. In order to inherit his father's will, the Black Prince Yerek became an adventurer. During his adventuring journey, the ancient monks tried to create a god slayer, but failed in the ritual and encountered Ramir of disobedience. Finally, with extraordinary luck and keen intuition, he won the battle, and became a god slayer. This is very famous in the entire magic world. Erica looked at the Holy Grail on the desk in surprise. Almost everyone in the magic world knows that the Black Prince Yarek is pursuing the Holy Grail. It was also because of the Holy Grail that he formed an inexplicable relationship with Lord Guinevere. It also caused the biggest dispute in the European magic world, the Holy Grail snatching incident, which made the whole of Europe a mess. Erica and Liliana stared at the Holy Grail that countless people were pursuing, and that even the Black Prince Yarek did not hesitate to cause chaos in Europe. But at this moment, it was casually placed on the desk like a vase. They looked at each other in bewilderment. Why did the Holy Grail that even Yarek and the entire European magic world could not snatch suddenly appear here? This was the biggest question in Erica's and Liliana's minds. Even that guy Yarek is after the Holy Grail? Noah touched his chin thoughtfully, and then said such a frightening sentence. Then does Yarek know the way to destroy the Holy Grail? Destroy the Holy Grail? Erica's eyes widened in shock. Liliana cried out involuntarily. You want to destroy the Holy Grail? That was the Holy Grail. Including the Black Prince Yarek, the entire European magic world had fought for it. But in the end, no one had been able to successfully obtain the Holy Grail. Had it been destroyed, perhaps even Yarek, who was known as the most rational and ruthless person, would want to fight Noah to the death? However, Noah nodded as a matter of course. Since it's the culprit that caused such a huge mess, why should we keep it? Erica and Liliana only felt a gush of anger in their chests. They could not relax no matter how hard they tried. What he said made sense. However, if such a precious god relic was destroyed just like that, what would happen to those who would go crazy just to get their hands on it? Driven by such emotions, even Erica, who had always been smart, capable, confident, and gorgeous, could not help but ask, "Are you really going to destroy the Holy Grail? What's wrong?" Noah looked at Erica in confusion. "Is there a problem?" Erica and Liliana blurted out almost at the same time. "There's a big problem." "Is that so?" Noah ignored Erica and Liliana's reaction and replied nonchalantly, "But if I don't take out the thing inside, I'll have a big problem on my side too." "What's in there?" Erica and Liliana looked at each other again. "Well, you won't understand even if I tell you," Noah said perfunctorily. He turned his head and looked at the Holy Grail in front of him again, mumbling to himself, "How should I destroy it?" Seeing that Noah was determined to destroy the Holy Grail that countless people were pursuing, Liliana did not know what to say. Erica also looked at Noah strangely. She turned around, took out her phone, and dialed a number. Soon, an elegant voice came from the other end of Erica's phone. "Hello, Ms. Erica." Hearing this elegant voice, as a well-mannered noblewoman, Erica would have greeted in the same elegant manner if it were any other time. But now, Erica was no longer in the mood, so she said this straightforwardly. "Princess Alice, please hurry over and stop our king. He intends to destroy the Holy Grail that he has obtained." As soon as her voice fell, a series of crackling sounds came from the other end of Erica's phone, as if someone had fallen or knocked something over. Then a busy tone followed. The phone was hung up. "Are you really going to destroy the Holy Grail?" Alice, who suddenly appeared in Noah's room in the form of a spirit, saw Noah staring at the Holy Grail. She was first stunned by the fact that the Holy Grail had really fallen into Noah's hands. Immediately after, she began to scold Noah without any hesitation. Don't be impulsive. If you really destroy the Holy Grail, not to mention Lord Guinevere, even Alexander will fight you to the death." "Hey, aren't you exaggerating a little too much?" Noah was almost frightened by Alice, who was right in front of him. He said speechlessly, "Could it be that this Holy Grail has some kind of magical ability? What kind of effect the Holy Grail has remains to be studied." Alice shook her head and couldn't help but cast her eyes on the Holy Grail. In her eyes, there was disbelief that this magic holy artifact had really fallen into Noah's hands, and also amazement at the artifact itself. However, according to the report of the Sage Council, Lord Guinevere once used the Holy Grail to summon the illusion of God and let God fight for him. Using the Holy Grail to summon the illusion of God Noah was finally surprised. This Holy Grail has such an effect. Not only that, but it can also forcibly plunder the undead life of the Mother Goddess. It can also store an extremely large amount of curse energy. I have seen it up close before. In the past, the Holy Grail stored the curse energy of more than a few dozen god slayers. Alice sighed. Unfortunately, in the most chaotic battle in the history of Europe, because of Alexander, most of the curse power in the Holy Grail was lost. For this, Lord Guinevere couldn't wait to tear Alexander into pieces. Speaking of this, Alice reacted and quickly asked, "All right, why is the Holy Grail in your hands?" Hearing this, Noah answered straightforwardly, "I snatched it from Guinevere's hands." Alice was stunned. After hesitating for a moment, she asked again with uncertainty, "How did you get it?" Noah's response was still very straightforward. "I snatched it." Alice was speechless, and after a while she sighed. As expected of a god slayer like Alexander, even the methods they use when they want to obtain something are similar. Noah rolled his eyes, turned his head, and stared at the Holy Grail. After a while he said, "Unfortunately, I didn't cause any bloody fights, nor did I cause chaos in the entire magic world of Europe. But how can I destroy it?" Alice was stunned for a moment, and then immediately cried out, "In the end, do I still have to destroy it?" Chapter 561. In the end, Noah had no choice but to give up the option of destroying the Holy Grail under Alice's full resistance. Perhaps, in the eyes of others, the Holy Grail was really a very precious god relic, and as long as one was in the magic world, they would more or less want to study it. However, in Noah's opinion, the Holy Grail was really useless. Therefore, if destroying the Holy Grail could take out the world fragment, Noah would never mind doing so. As for what would happen to Yerach and Guinevere after destroying this important god relic, that was not something Noah needed to consider. After all, not to mention that Yerach was not a kind person, and had caused a lot of trouble for Noah during this period of time. Even Guinevere was also scheming to use Noah, to let Noah help him identify whether Perseus was the last king. Therefore, Noah did not need to care about what these people with bad intentions would do if the Holy Grail was destroyed. Noah was the kind of person who would be good to others if others were good to him. If others were bad to him, then he would only be worse to them. As for Yerach and Guinevere, Noah did not need to care about their feelings at all. Of course, Alice's feelings still needed to be taken into consideration. The Holy Grail that fell into Noah's hands was a magic holy relic that was once fought over by people in the magic world in Europe. Even Yerach was eyeing the Holy Grail covetously, so naturally, Alice would be interested in it. According to Alice, the fact that the Holy Grail fell into Noah's hands must not be known to Yerach. Otherwise, that guy with a twisted personality definitely wouldn't mind coming back and setting up a deadly trap for Noah to steal the Holy Grail. Of course, the news of the Holy Grail could not be leaked to the other godslayers. Because of the Stone of Gorgon, Noah had been targeted by 3 or 4 deicide together. Compared to the Stone of Gorgon, the value of the Holy Grail was no less than that of the Stone of Gorgon. Perhaps, it would attract the other deicide at any time. Thus, Alice suggested that the whereabouts of the Holy Grail must not be leaked. It would be best if they could find a place to seal the Holy Grail. That way, they would be able to monopolize the Holy Grail and prevent Guinevere, the rightful successor of the Holy Grail, from finding an opportunity to summon the Holy Grail back. What Alice didn't know was that while the world fragment was still attached to the Holy Grail, Guinevere couldn't summon the Holy Grail back to herself. And without destroying the Holy Grail, Noah could only think of one way to take out the world fragment that was residing on it. And that was to bring the Holy Grail back to Between Worlds. In the past, the world fragment that Noah had brought with him would automatically attract the other half of the world fragment after entering the world space and repair itself. Since that was the case, if the Holy Grail was brought back to the world Between Worlds, the world fragment residing in the Holy Grail would attract the other half of the world fragment and automatically separate from it. That might not be the case. However, Noah wasn't sure if he could bring the Holy Grail back to Between Worlds. In the past, Noah had never considered the question of whether he could bring anything into the world Between Worlds. This was because Gaia and Aleia had said that Noah was the only one who could enter the world Between Worlds. Thus Noah did not think about this problem. However, every time Noah entered Between Worlds, the things he carried with him could also be moved to Between Worlds with him. Logically speaking, it should be possible to bring the Holy Grail back to Between Worlds. However, once he left the current world and entered Between Worlds, then when he returned to this world, Noah could only choose to descend a month later. Therefore, Noah decided that it wouldn't be too late to leave this world after dealing with Perseus. Therefore, after rejecting Alice's request to bring the Holy Grail back to the Sage Council, Noah no longer paid attention to the Holy Grail, but focused on finding the whereabouts of Perseus. Since Alice was here, this beneficial resource was naturally used effectively by Noah. He let Alice, who was good at using mental perception, and Liliana, who was good at witchcraft, search for the whereabouts of Perseus together. And Erica was sent by Noah to pay attention to Guinevere's movements. It could be seen from Guinevere's extreme reaction after snatching the Holy Grail that the Holy Grail was very important to Guinevere. So in order to get the Holy Grail back, Guinevere might do something. There was no action yet. It was probably because Guinevere was waiting for Lancelot to recover. Once Lancelot could once again respond to Guinevere's call and appear on the ground, then Guinevere might come directly to him. Unfortunately, in the next 3 days, Alice and Liliana did not find the whereabouts of Perseus, and Erica did not hear anything from Guinevere either. As for Guinevere, he had probably regained his composure. He thought that Lancelot, who could only appear for a short period of time, and could not even fully exert his strength, could not possibly be a match for Noah, the special god slayer. So he must be hiding and plotting something bad. And Perseus, the hero god, seemed to be working very hard in order to recover from his injuries, so that he could come back to settle accounts with Noah. After hiding for so long, there was not even a shadow of him. It was really difficult to deal with him. All in all, if there was no movement from the enemy, Noah could not do anything. He could only wait and see. As a result, Noah, who had nothing to do, could only continue to supplement his knowledge of various mythological systems in Diana's second-hand bookstore. With Alice, who could be said to be the wisest lady in Europe, here, Noah could ask her anything he didn't know. He had gained a lot from this. In this way, at this time, Noah ushered in the calmest period since he came to Nabali, becoming the most leisurely of all. The relationship between the Demon King and the magician had always been like this. The matter of dealing with the god of disobedience was all handed over to the god slayer, and the rest of the trivial matters were all done by the people serving the king of the god slayer. No one knew how long this pattern had been maintained. In this regard, whether it was Alice, Erica, or Liliana, they all took it as a matter of course. If even other things need the king to worry about, then the magicians in this world are basically useless. So, even if it's a request, before the god of disobedience comes out, leave the rest to us. This was what Alice, Erica, Liliana, and the others said. Noah had no choice but to enjoy this short period of ordinary days with a clear conscience. Under such circumstances, Noah did not know that Athena had already encountered big trouble. In the dark night, in an alley in Nabali, a petite figure came out of the darkness. She staggered against the wall, her small hand clutching her chest as she gasped for breath. And opposite the petite girl, a handsome man dressed in pure white with a sword in his hand knelt on the ground with one knee on the ground. He was also clutching his chest. His face was full of pain, but there was also a trace of joy on his face as he said this. As expected of the goddess of wisdom known as Athena, before retrieving the snake, you were actually able to find a chance to injure the steel hero, who is your mortal enemy. It seems that I have underestimated the power and wisdom hidden in your petite body. However, in the face of Perseus' praise, Athena's expression was a little regretful. This regret was not directed at Perseus, but at the other petite figure floating beside Perseus. I just didn't expect that my former compatriot would not only become that man's maid, but also assist the steel, who has been my sworn enemy since the mythological era. Athena said in a low voice with some anger. Could it be that you have fallen to this point? Honorable Athena, the petite girl Guinevere lowered her head and said this. In order to achieve the goal, we can use any means. This awareness Guinevere has long had. Chapter 562. Goo. Athena furrowed her brows and stared at Perseus, who was kneeling on one knee, and Guinevere, who was hovering in midair with her cold, snake-like eyes. She couldn't help but be flabbergasted. Originally, Athena had been looking for the whereabouts of the severely injured Perseus. She wanted to get rid of him before the hero god fully recovered, and resolve the hatred in the myths. Athena was the goddess of darkness who controlled the underworld, and was used to moving in the dark. It was fine during the day, but once it was night, Athena's perception would improve a lot. It was not impossible to find Perseus. As for whether she would lose to Perseus, Athena wasn't worried at all. Although Athena didn't retrieve her snake, and didn't restore the triad of divinity, it would be too disadvantageous for her to face the steel hero, who was the nemesis of the snake goddess. However, Perseus was also killed by Noah once and was seriously injured. In addition, a dragon-slaying hero like Perseus had a certain restraining ability against the dragon snake. Athena, who didn't retrieve her snake, wouldn't be restrained by such restraints, which was advantageous for her. Therefore, Athena didn't think that she would be bitten by Perseus. Unfortunately, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, couldn't predict the future. She didn't know that Guinevere had found Perseus first, and even joined forces with him. As the former goddess of earth, Guinevere, the most orthodox demon queen, had mastered a lot of magical witch spells and knowledge about various gods. For Guinevere, it wasn't difficult to speed up the recovery of Perseus' injuries. In fact, when Athena found Perseus, Perseus' injuries were already more than half healed with the help of Guinevere. Facing Perseus, who was more than half healed, Athena, who didn't retrieve her snake, was naturally suppressed. In the end, Athena made the judgment that instead of facing defeat, it was better to fight back with heavy injuries. She fought with Perseus until both sides suffered heavy injuries, which led to this scene. I was too careless. Athena took a few deep breaths, suppressing the pain in her body, and said coldly. He arrogantly chased after his old enemy, because he thought that he had suffered an irreparable injury. This outcome can also be considered a lesson. No. What are you talking about? Perseus said frivolously. To be able to fight back at such a critical moment, that is indeed the majesty of a true goddess. I will not deny your bravery, Athena. Being praised by a hero of steel, I really can't feel happy at all. Athena's eyes flickered. In the end, you were originally the prey of this concubine's destined enemy. You were destined to be defeated by him. Today's result can be considered this concubine's punishment for attempting to steal someone else's prey. Let's call it a day. Athena suddenly smiled as if she had seen through something. Snake-slaying hero, the leader of the ancient Sun Kingdom, someone will come to end your legend. This concubine will wait until that time comes. Leaving this sentence, Athena's body was filled with a fog-like darkness, and she disappeared. God Perseus. Guinevere immediately called out. Athena escaped. It doesn't matter. Perseus placed his sword on the ground and propped himself up. His face was as dazzling as the sun and as fanatical as a warrior. Although I am a dragon-slaying hero and can kill all the snakes in the world, my body was first lost because of the king who killed the god, and then injured because of the goddess who is good at fighting. Then there is no need to hesitate about who the enemy is. Saying such a sentence, Perseus raised the sword in his hand, and a shocking expression flashed across his eyes. After recovering from my injuries, sharpening my sword, and taking revenge on the god who killed the god, I will naturally set the goddess as my next target. Hearing this, Guinevere wanted to object. No matter how you think about it, you should first deal with the injured enemy in front of you, right? How can you let go of the enemy that can be dealt with in front of you, because you have already decided the order of dealing with the enemy? However, the so-called heroes of steel were just like that. They could fight for glory, for self-respect, and even for trivial matters. The only thing they needed to consider was how to quell the desire to fight in their hearts. Everything else was not important. Lancelot could give up the factor that would make his sword dull for this reason. He could even abandon his memory. Naturally, Perseus could also abandon his rationality and common sense for this reason. He could only follow the thoughts in his heart and do whatever he wanted. This was steel. Guinevere understood this steel. Therefore, Guinevere would not say anything about Perseus' decision. Besides, the number one enemy in Perseus' heart was Noah, and Guinevere's target was also Noah. He did not need to care about Athena at all. As long as he could confirm that Perseus was the last king that he was looking for, and he could also take back the Holy Grail that fell into Noah's hands, then nothing else mattered. It was precisely because of this that Guinevere put in so much effort to find Perseus. As a result, Perseus, who could not be found no matter how hard he tried, was unexpectedly found by Guinevere at this time and cooperated with him. The content of the cooperation was as follows: Guinevere helped Perseus recover from his injuries. Perseus was responsible for dealing with Noah. It was that simple. As a steel that existed for battle, if Guinevere came to join forces with Perseus to deal with Noah, then Perseus would definitely refuse. In Perseus's view, he only needed to be on his own to fight against Noah. There was no need to join forces to fight against the enemy. Therefore, Guinevere deliberately took a detour and only helped Perseus recover from his injuries. Then he would let Perseus deal with Noah. This way, things would not become so complicated. After all, Perseus's purpose was only to fight against Noah again and take revenge. And Guinevere could observe Perseus while healing him and find decisive evidence that could prove whether Perseus was the last king or not. However, according to the current situation, just as Lancelot said, Perseus' divinity seemed to be slightly different from the last king that Guinevere was looking for. In any case, Guinevere could only proceed according to the plan. "Young girl, whip this lazy body for me again," Perseus said loudly. "This way, I can continue to fight." "Yes." Guinevere bowed respectfully. The next moment, Perseus and Guinevere walked to a dark corner together and disappeared into the darkness. On the other side, Noah, who was reading on the second floor of Diana's old bookstore, suddenly frowned. He reached out, searched in his pocket, and took out a badge. Hum hum, hum. The Gorgon stone lying in Noah's palm was constantly vibrating, and on the pattern of Medusa's head engraved on the badge, the snake hair on Medusa's head was constantly wriggling, looking like a group of frightened snakes, looking very uneasy. "What's going on?" Looking at the strange state of the Gorgon stone in his hand, Noah's frown deepened. After putting the book in his hand on the counter, Noah pondered for a while and walked downstairs. There were basically no people walking around the old market street late at night, and there were only vehicles shuttling back and forth on the distant road, bringing with them bursts of honking and engine sounds. Hum hum hum. Coming out of the old bookstore, Noah found that the Gorgon stone in his hand was vibrating more and more violently, and he suddenly narrowed his eyes. At this time, a familiar breath suddenly appeared within the range of Noah's sensing ability, causing Noah to turn his head abruptly and look in the direction of the breath, and then he was stunned. He saw that in an alley opposite the old bookstore, a sudden surge of darkness was attached to the ground like a shadow, and after a while, it condensed into a petite figure. Her silver shoulder-length hair seemed to have lost its luster as it drooped weakly. The petite girl fell to the ground just like that, as if she had lost her life. She didn't even move an inch. Seeing this, Noah's eyes suddenly narrowed, and he put the Gorgon stone in his hand into his pocket, stepped forward, and hugged the girl into his arms, and returned to the old bookstore. Chapter 563. Bang! Noah opened the door and carried the petite Athena in his arms. He didn't even close the door. He went straight into his room and placed Athena on his bed. Ugh! Athena seemed to be having a nightmare. Her beautiful face was covered in sweat, and her brows were tightly knitted. Noah's expression couldn't help but turn solemn. After smoothing Athena's messy hair, Noah stretched out his hand and placed it on Athena's petite chest. He closed his eyes and activated the curse power in his body. The purpose of doing this was naturally to check on Athena's physical condition. Noah had an extraordinary sensing ability to begin with. This ability allowed Noah to understand everything around him like a radar. He was also very sensitive to hostility, malice, and killing intent in the surroundings. He could even sense his own physical condition. Now Noah was in close contact with Athena. Using their physical contact and the flow of curse power as a channel, he was able to scan Athena's body with his sensory ability. This was something that he could do. Therefore, with the help of his extraordinary senses, Noah sensed that something was wrong with Athena's body. Is she injured? It can't be said that she wasn't injured. However, Athena's internal and external injuries were healing at an extraordinary speed. This showed the extraordinary vitality of the goddess of earth to the greatest extent. According to the current trend, Athena's injuries should be completely healed within a day if she were to lie down quietly. The problem was that the aura of death and darkness that belonged to Athena's body was mixed with a trace of sharpness. It was as if a sharp blade was constantly twisting in Athena's body, continuously causing damage to her body. It was precisely because of this that Athena, the goddess of war, became so weak and even lost consciousness. Noah sensed a familiar aura from the sharpness of the sharpness. Perseus? Noah opened his eyes and stared at Athena's beautiful face that was dripping with sweat. He frowned again. Could it be that Athena encountered Perseus and was injured by him? That can't be right. Noah was very puzzled. Athena and Perseus, the snake goddess and the steel hero, the two valiant gods of disobedience. If such characters were to fight in Nabali, their curses and movements would have already filled the air. How could Alice and Liliana not even notice it at all? Noah didn't know that this was also a good thing done by Guinevere. For the most orthodox demon queen, if she wanted to conceal the fluctuations of her curses and movements, it would be difficult for Noah to notice it unless he had a witch who was far more skilled than Guinevere. Noah still didn't know that Perseus and Guinevere had joined forces. However, that was a problem for the future. For now, he had to heal Athena's injuries first. Heal. Noah had a slight headache. It just so happens that I'm not good at it. Noah held the authority called the 10 avatars. It was a power that could be used as 10 separate authorities. Each of them had extraordinary beyonder powers. However, the authority of the 10 avatars made Noah almost invincible in battle, but it wasn't so easy to use it on others. Not to mention other things, the elf avatar could give Noah the highest level of vitality and recovery. No matter how serious the injury was, or how severe the consumption was, he could recover in a very short time. Unfortunately, this avatar was only effective on Noah himself. The rest of the avatars, such as Storm, Giant, White Horse, Dragon, Golden Wolf, Phoenix, Thunder, and Warrior, were only effective in battle. In this way, the only thing that could be used outside of battle was probably the priest, who could exert the power of domination and protection, and could also use various greatly enhanced runic script. I can only use priest ? Noah secretly sighed. This avatar also has a very troublesome way to use it. With such a complaint, Noah's actions were very nimble, without any hesitation. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he helped Athena up and held her in his arms. Noah looked at Athena's beautiful face that was dripping with sweat. To be more precise, it should be said that her lips were slightly trembling, and he smiled bitterly. I didn't expect that there would be a time when I need to do this kind of thing to a child. If Yanju, Hina, and Xiaoshur knew, they would probably hate me. Noah, who didn't know that the truth would be the opposite, maintained the posture of hugging Athena and closed his eyes again. I will use these words to provoke the gods in heaven. Exercise this magic, chant this incantation, make everything in the world bow their heads and kneel. Under the urging of the magic words that could provoke the gods in heaven, the stone plate in Noah's heart had already pointed to the priest pattern. Feeling that he had entered the priest avatar state, Noah immediately let the curse power in his body surge, and used the priest avatar's ability to refine the curse power into a protective power that burst out from his body. Immediately, Noah lowered his head and completely covered Athena's delicate lips with his own. As if he wanted to complete all the steps in one go, he directly pried open Athena's weak teeth and captured Athena's tongue. Ugh! Athena seemed to feel something and let out a slightly bitter snort. Then, the sound of tongues entangling with each other began to echo in the silent night. During the entanglement of their tongues, Noah suppressed the pleasure in his heart and the nostalgia for Athena's soft lips and tongue. He calmed his heart and let the protective power that had already been refined in his body through his lips into Athena's body. Wang. Just like the scene when Noah bestowed the protective power to Alice, Athena's delicate body began to emit a faint halo that covered Athena's entire body. The power of protection was similar to the blessings of the gods. With the protective power, the weak would temporarily have a strong body, and the powerless would also have the right to temporarily exercise their power. As for those who were seriously injured, their injuries would naturally heal faster under the support of the power of the barrier. Thus, under the infusion of the protective power, Athena's originally very tenacious vitality seemed to have received a strong reinforcement. Not only did it accelerate the recovery of Athena's injuries, but it also suppressed the sharp edge that was twisting in Athena's body. After an unknown amount of time, Noah and Athena separated their lips. It was only then that Noah realized that Athena had awakened. It was unknown when Athena had woken up, but she was staring at Noah with her dark snake eyes. Her beautiful face was as emotionless as usual. In an instant, Noah and Athena's gazes met. They didn't even change their hugging posture, as they fell into an indescribable silence. Noah felt extremely awkward and didn't know what to say. After all, Noah didn't just kiss a famous goddess. Judging from her appearance, she was just a child, so it was inevitable that it would be awkward. On the other hand, Athena looked at Noah with an ambiguous gaze, as though she didn't feel that this high and mighty goddess that only existed in myths had been violated. Instead, she was calm as though she could see through Noah's thoughts. This concubine's destined enemy. Why did you save this concubine? This was the only thought in Athena's mind. For Athena, Noah and Athena were enemies to begin with, and they were the so-called enemies of fate. So why did he save her, as an enemy? You talk a lot of nonsense. Seeing that Athena didn't seem to mind what he had just done to her, Noah heaved a sigh of relief and regained his composure. Since you've been saved, you should just thank me honestly. Why do you have so many questions? Hearing this, Athena showed a puzzled expression. What an incredible man. Chapter 564. Although there are many things I want to ask you, before that, let me ask you how your body is doing. Noah let Athena lie flat on his bed again. He glanced at Athena's pretty face and observed the complexion of this petite goddess. With the power of my blessing, I feel that your injuries should be recovering very quickly. I can feel it. Although it was only for a moment, Athena revealed an expression that Noah had never seen before. It was an expression that seemed to be praise and amazement, but more than that, it was as if he had gotten a fun toy. There was a hint of a happy child's expression. With such an expression, Athena stretched out her hand and stroked her abdomen, as if something warm was beating inside. Her pretty face relaxed, just like a pregnant mother, which made Noah feel unnatural. Your power is indeed working in my body. Before it is exhausted, the power that Perseus left in my body that will continue to cause harm has stopped working. For the time being, it will not pose a threat to my life. Hearing this, Noah's face sank. For the time being? Yes, for the time being. Athena's tone was quite cold, as if she was not talking about her own matters. That god was originally the worst combination with me. I am the snake, and he is the steel that slaughters dragons and snakes. I am in charge of darkness, and he is in charge of the sun. Just like how steel can be reforged in the furnace fire, the sun will continue to rise and sink, repeating the cycle over and over again. The power that the hero left in my body can still be revived. For your protection to be able to force the nearly indestructible steel and the sun to such a state, it is already very amazing. After saying this, Athena gently moved her hand from her abdomen to her chest and closed her eyes. If the power that the hero left in my body recovers, then although I will not die directly, my situation will definitely be very bad. The worst outcome is that I will fall into a long period of sleep. After all, no matter how sharp a weapon is, after a long period of use, it will become blunt. A long period of time will be enough to wear down this power. Hearing this, Noah could probably guess why Athena became like this. As expected, Athena encountered Perseus and had a conflict with him. As a result, Perseus' power seemed to have affected Athena, and it even went deep into Athena's body, constantly causing damage to Athena. Who would have thought that the snake goddess would be at such a disadvantage against the hero of steel? Of course, it was also because Athena's Gorgon stone was still in Noah's hands, and had not recovered to the peak of the Trinity. Otherwise, as the highest queen of the divine realm, Athena would never have fallen to such a state. Athena seemed to be aware of this as well, but it was more of a reflection on her defeat. I just didn't expect that man's servant girl to be involved in this. How hateful. Maid. Noah was startled, and then his heart skipped a beat. Is it Gulivia? Is that the maid's name? Athena narrowed her dark eyes. I only know that the maidservant is the god ancestor, the queen of witches, and the rightful successor of the Holy Grail. As a former compatriot, the maidservant seems to have joined that man's side and worked for him. Hearing Athena's words, Noah pondered for a moment and then asked, the man you are talking about, is it the last king? Oh, you already know the existence of that man? Athena looked at Noah, and a trace of seriousness appeared in her eyes. That's right, that man is the hero who is the archenemy of the Godslayers, and the hero who annihilated the demon king. His destiny is to destroy all the Godslayers, and every time he wakes up, he will start the battle to annihilate the demon king. If that happens, you will definitely die, so it is natural that you need to be careful. Hearing Athena's words, Noah could not help but want to refute. However, Athena's young face revealed an unprecedented serious expression, which made Noah open his mouth, and his refutation turned into a question. Are you so sure that I am not the last king's opponent? I said that that man is the archenemy of all the Godslayers, and the meaning of his existence is to annihilate all the demon kings on earth. This has been maintained since the mythological era. Athena shook her head. After the Godslayer king usurps the power of God, his life will also be freed from the category of humans, and he can even live as long as God. Athena's words reminded Noah of Warban and Luohao. These two oldest Godslayers had lived for more than 200 years. How could an ordinary human live for so long? Although magicians had corresponding methods to extend their lives, it was incredible for people like Warban and Luohao to live for more than 200 years without any signs of death. In that case, didn't the Godslayers live very long lives? Whether it is the Godslayers or the god of disobedience, none of them have truly died of old age. Athena seemed to have seen through Noah's thoughts and made such an answer. Most of the Godslayers will die somewhere on the battlefield. They will either die in a battle with the god of disobedience or a Godslayer of the same race, or they will be annihilated by the awakened man. None of them can live for long. Indeed, since there were Godslayers like Warban and Luohao who had lived for 200 years, then were there no Godslayers born in the era before Warban? The answer was naturally no. And since these Godslayers also had long lives, how could they all die before Warban became a Godslayer? Noah obtained the answer to this question from Athena. Presumably, those who became Godslayers before Warban either died in battle, or were completely annihilated by the awakened last king. As a warrior, dying a violent death on the battlefield is the true end of life. If we really die of old age, that would be the greatest regret. Athena glanced at Noah and suddenly smiled. You are an outstanding warrior that even I have acknowledged. Therefore, you only need to follow in the footsteps of your people in the past and step into death. That is your true destination. As my fated enemy, I will not let you die in the hands of that man. It is my responsibility to let you return to the earth. After saying this, Athena relaxed her body and let her body sink into the bed, but her eyes were still fixed on Noah. That maidservant has joined Perseus. Oh, Noah raised his eyebrows and suddenly understood everything. You are so seriously injured. It is also the work of that god, isn't it? being plotted against by my former fallen compatriots, where should I vent this frustration in my heart? Athena's lips curled into a cold smile. This concubine will not take revenge on my fallen compatriots. That will only insult this concubine's identity as a queen. Since that is the case, I can only take revenge on that mischievous brat who calls himself a hero. However, this body does not allow this concubine to take revenge. So my fated enemy, I will leave the rest to you. With that, Athena raised one of her hands, and a cloud of black mist appeared on it and flew out into Noah's pocket. Noah took out the Gorgon stone from his pocket. He saw that Athena's black mist was slowly getting into the Gorgon stone. We, the Mother Goddess, have had an irreconcilable feud with the heroes of steel since the mythological era. I will not allow myself to be defeated in a battle with my former enemy. While Noah was still puzzled, Athena's voice slowly sounded. If the power of the heroes of steel is described as the sharp edge, then the power of the goddess of serpents is the hidden darkness. Presumably, that arrogant hero has not yet discovered that he is in the same situation as I am. Follow the guidance of my snake, my fated enemy, and collect your prey. Noah suddenly looked up at Athena in surprise. But Athena had already closed her eyes tightly, and her breathing had become steady as she fell into a state of deep sleep. Noah stared at Athena's beautiful face, and after a while he clenched the Gorgon stone in his hand. As expected of Athena. Chapter 565. At the edge of Naples harbor, Perseus was sitting cross-legged in the middle of a beach that was hit by rolling waves. His eyes were closed, and under him, a magic circle was slowly rotating. In front of Perseus, Guinevere, who was floating on the sea not far away, quietly looked at Perseus, who was sitting cross-legged in the magic array. When he sensed that the magic array he had constructed was operating smoothly, a look of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. If one were to sense it carefully, they would find that the magic array, where Perseus was sitting, would release a burst of heat from time to time, and then a whirlwind would blow from time to time. Then it would suddenly calm down, and everything would calm down. However, when the magic circle calmed down, it was when the waves hit the beach and submerged half of Perseus' body. Under such circumstances, the injuries on Perseus' body were recovering at an extremely fast speed. Needless to say, these were all done by Guinevere. Looking at Perseus, who was quietly sitting cross-legged in the magic circle, Guinevere suddenly spoke. "Uncle, this can let the hero of steel recover, right?" The moment Guinevere's voice sounded, a pure white figure suddenly appeared on the sea below his floating body. "There is no better way to polish the sword of steel than this." Lancelot's calm voice slowly sounded. "Wind, fire, water, they are all factors that are inseparable from steel. Nothing is more effective than them for the hero of steel. Fire can forge steel and make steel into a sharp sword. Water can cool steel and make steel into a continuous sword. Wind can encourage the fire and make the flames more fierce, making the steel calcined in the flames take shape very quickly. Therefore, wind, fire, and water were closely related to steel. With Guinevere's arrangement, as the hero of steel, Perseus' injuries were healed so quickly. Even when Athena found Perseus, Perseus was already mostly healed. Of course, it was also because Perseus was Mitra, the sun god. As an undying sun, Perseus's recovery ability was naturally multiplied. He wasn't any weaker than Athena, the mother of the earth. However, if the element of wind and water was too strong, then it would do more harm than good to the hero of steel. After all, an overly intense fire could not forge steel. Instead, it would melt the steel directly. It was precisely because of this that Yarak had used Mount Vesuvius as a trap, luring Lancelot into the volcano and using it as a last resort. What Guinevere needed to do was to adjust the fire used to forge Perseus, so that the fire would not cause harm to the hero of steel. Thinking of his current mission, Nivea's expression was one of annoyance. Originally, my plan was to awaken steel in Nabali and observe in the dark. I would let the seventh god Slayer fight steel, and use him to help us identify whether this steel is our lord. But now, the plan has been completely ruined by King Noah. It wasn't as simple as the plan being ruined. Nivea even lost the extremely important Holy Grail that the entire European magic world and the Black Prince Yerek couldn't snatch away. It was snatched away by Noah. If they couldn't find the Holy Grail, then they would be in big trouble. We must find the Holy Grail. Lancelot made such a declaration. If my lord wakes up, without the assistance of the Holy Grail, his martial strength will be greatly weakened. At that time, the kings of this era who have killed gods may be able to find an opportunity to defeat my lord. It is so that our Lord can exert the most powerful and invincible power when he wakes up. That's why Guinevere, who was once the goddess of the earth, willingly gave up her immortal life to create the Holy Grail. Nivea nodded heavily. Although without the Holy Grail, it doesn't mean that our Lord can't exert the power to annihilate the Demon King. But with the Holy Grail, our Lord can become truly invincible. We must take back the Holy Grail, my beloved daughter. I must tell you that we can't directly clash with King Noah for the time being, Lancelot reminded. During the battle with the Black Prince in the volcano, I appeared for too long. As your shadow, this is not allowed. So, as long as you are not targeted, I will not appear for the next period of time. Now, the only thing you can rely on is the god of Perseus. My beloved daughter, you must not be impulsive and clash head-on with the king, who even the Holy Grail will respond to. After being reminded by Lancelot, Nivea couldn't help but remember the scene before the Holy Grail was taken away. Her delicate body couldn't help but tremble. It must be known that the Holy Grail had always only recognized Nivea as the orthodox successor, and would only respond to Nivea's call. As a result, even the entire magic world of Europe and the Black Prince Yerek couldn't take it away. However, now a god slayer, who was born less than half a year ago, inexplicably appeared, and could make the Holy Grail respond to him. In this way, Nivea would wonder if the king still had other means that he hadn't used yet. Would he also be able to resolve other things that she relied on? If Noah even had a way to remove the guardian spell on Nivea that was connected to Lancelot, so that Lancelot could never appear again, then how would Nivea, who had lost the protection of God and only had the power of the god ancestor, face the 7 fierce kings in this world and awaken her lord? Nivea shuddered at the thought of this. Nivea had to admit that she had underestimated Noah before. But that's it, Guinevere muttered to himself as if he was comforting himself. God Perseus's injury is about to be fully recovered. At that time, the Holy Grail will definitely find a chance to take it back. Unfortunately, Nivea was still too naive after all. My beloved daughter, Lancelot, who was reflected on the sea, suddenly spoke. We're in big trouble. Lancelot's sudden words made Guinevere completely stunned. Immediately afterward, Perseus, who was sitting cross-legged on the beach to recover from his injuries, suddenly opened his eyes, and a mighty smile appeared on his face. God Slayer, have you found me? While shouting such a sentence, Perseus stood up, and a sharp sword suddenly appeared in his hand. He raised it and pointed it at the harbor in front of him. Since you're in front of me, then don't hide anymore. That's not what a hero does. As soon as these words came out, a voice immediately responded to Perseus's words. I'm sorry, I'm neither a hero nor a warrior. I'm just an ordinary person who has the means to fight. After speaking, a figure slowly walked over, looked at Perseus and Nivea, who was floating on the sea not far away, and curled his lips and smiled. You've been hiding for so long, that's enough. This time let's end it. Well said, young man. Perseus didn't have the slightest awareness of the danger and laughed out loud. Although my body is still a little slow, I've been waiting for this moment, and now it's finally here. Compared to Perseus, Guinevere was at a loss for words. Undoubtedly, I've already set up a barrier. Why would I still be found? Because you targeted someone you shouldn't have. Noah sneered and raised the obsidian badge in his hand that exuded a faint glow. That goddess isn't the one who will suffer losses. If she can find you once, she can find you a second time. I really feel sorry for you. Hearing this, Nivea's lips trembled slightly. Yidyenna. That's it. Noah put the badge in his hand back into his pocket, raised his head, looked at Perseus, and his eyes gradually calmed down. However, the calmer Noah was, the more terrifying it was. This was something that those who were familiar with Noah knew. The game is over. And the show is over. It's time for this farce to come to an end. Perseus, make your move. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance to wield your sword. That would be too rude to the hero of steel. You really dare to say that? God Slayer. Perseus's face darkened. Although my body hasn't fully recovered, as long as I can wield my sword, I can fight. Be prepared. Chapter 566. On the other side, Guinevere watched Noah come directly to the door and fight with Perseus. He was completely at a loss of what to do. Guinevere had never been afraid of a person, although she was only a god ancestor, and was insignificant in the face of the existence of the god Slayer and the god of disobedience. Guinevere used to be the goddess of earth, so she was not as afraid of the god Slayer and the god of disobedience as ordinary human beings. Besides, with Lancelot's protection, Guinevere had never been afraid of the Black Prince Yarok, who had been trying to get rid of her. But at this moment, Guinevere was really afraid of Noah. Before he became a god slayer, he had successfully killed 2 of the highest-level gods of disobedience at the same time. He had won the final victory in the battle with Warban, Luohao, and Tony, the 3 notorious god slayers. He had escaped from the Black Prince Yarok's trap alone, and avoided the consequences of falling into the volcano with Lancelot and Guinevere. He had even counterattacked and ruined Yarok's whole plan. Now Noah was able to make the Holy Grail, which only acknowledged Guinevere, respond to his voice. He had even killed Perseus once. Before Perseus had recovered and Lancelot could not appear, Noah had come to him. This man was really terrifying. Guinevere could not help but feel a little afraid of him. My dear daughter, you need to calm down. At this time, Lancelot's voice came into Guinevere's ears. The god slayer seems to be worried about my appearance, and does not intend to attack you now. At least you are safe. But that was when god Perseus was still around, Guinevere said with some unease. That king should be wary of the alliance between uncle and god Perseus. So, after King Perseus is dealt with, he might attack me. By then uncle, who can't use his full strength, won't be a match for King Perseus. I don't have to clash with that king. Once he attacks you, I'll be able to appear. Even if I'm no match for him, I'll still be able to bring you out of here safely if I run at full speed. Lancelot's voice started to turn serious. My dear daughter, you should understand this, but you have lost your usual calmness because of your fear of the king. Quickly recover. Hearing Lancelot's reprimand, Guinevere finally came to her senses. She took a deep breath, suppressed her inner emotions, and watched the battle between Noah and Perseus. However, the scene that appeared in front of Guinevere's eyes suddenly made her eyes wide, and her mind was in chaos again. With a sharp piercing sound, Perseus charged toward Noah on the beach where the waves were rolling. He raised the saber in his hand, and slashed at Noah's head with a force that could split Mount Hua. Swoosh! A cold arc flashed, and the sharp sword directly cut through the air. It flashed through the space and mercilessly fell in the direction of Noah. His eyes narrowed because of Perseus's blade that was shining with arcs of light. In the face of Perseus' fierce slash, Noah smirked and stretched out a finger. Ding! After a crisp sound, Perseus's sword fell on Noah's finger, but it only caused a spark. It could not even cause a wound on Noah's finger. Seeing this scene, not to mention Guinevere, even Perseus widened his eyes in shock. However, while Perseus was still in shock, Noah suddenly stretched out his other hand, bent his finger, and suddenly flicked the blade of Perseus's sword. Dang! Accompanied by the sound of gold and iron colliding, Perseus's sword was hit by Noah's finger, as if it was hit by a heavy blunt weapon. It was fiercely bounced away in the vibration of the air. Immediately Noah turned, spun, and kicked heavily at Perseus' chest. Bang! At the critical moment, Perseus controlled the sword that was bounced away in time, and held it horizontally in front of his chest to block Noah's kick. However, in the next moment, Perseus felt an extremely strong force transmitted from Noah's foot, which landed on the saber. The shock caused Perseus's body to fly backward, and he was kicked into the air uncontrollably. In the air, Perseus finally reacted and tried his best to control his body. After turning half a circle, he faced Noah with his head down and feet up. The sword in his hand suddenly disappeared and was replaced by an iron bow. Whang! A gorgeous light will appeared behind Perseus, illuminating the entire beach. Ancient sun, please give me the shining light. Rain of arrows and annihilate the sinner who violated the contract. In a short sentence, Perseus pulled the iron bow heavily. Whang! The light will behind Perseus suddenly lit up. The moment Perseus released the arrow on the bow, it spun up and made light arrows appear in the space in front of Perseus. Like raindrops, they fell on Noah's body. The vision in front of him was filled with dazzling light arrows. But Noah just crossed his hands in front of his face and made a defensive posture. Taking a closer look, Noah's body suddenly flashed with a light screen that looked like it was made of scales, enveloping Noah's entire body. Bang 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 bang. Amidst the continuous explosions, the arrows of light that blotted out the sky like raindrops hit Noah without missing a beat. They fell on the scale-like light curtain around Noah, stirring up bursts of halos and sparks. However, they could not break through the light curtain and hit Noah's body. What? Perseus was shocked, but he also noticed the scale-like light curtain around Noah's body. Scales. That's right. Noah waved his hand and smiled faintly. And it's a dragon's scale. Yes, dragon's scale. This was the hidden effect of Noah's Dragonman incarnation. Since ancient times, whether in myths or reality, dragon scales were one of the hardest substances. Noah's Dragonman incarnation had an effect. That was, it could transform Noah's body into a dragon's physique. As a result, this effect even gave Noah the defensive power of the dragon's scales. Noah also discovered it when he accidentally used the Dragonman incarnation in battle. When using the Dragonman incarnation, if the curse power in the body was released, then the released curse power would form a layer of light curtain in the shape of dragon scales. Because it was not a real scale, Noah called it air scale. It could give Noah the ability to cause great damage to dragon-type creatures. It could give Noah god-tier close-range combat power that far exceeded intuition and wildness. It could give Noah a physique comparable to a dragon's. With the support of the dragon's physique, the curse power could also form a layer of air scales to defend against external attacks. This was the true power of the Dragonman. By the way, the firmness of my air scales is comparable to the authority of a god-slayer, I know, called steel protection. Noah suddenly smiled at Perseus. That is called an immortal body or an indestructible body by your gods. So, Dragon Slayer hero, do you want to try to cut open my air scales? God Slayer, are you looking down on me? Perseus's handsome face showed a burst of anger. I am a Dragon Slayer hero. You actually used the dragon's scales to fight against me. God Slayer, you are insulting a hero. A hero who causes trouble for others, we will politely decline. Noah's face was cold. You injured my ally. I am very angry now. And you still want to talk to me about being a hero? Then let me send you, the hero, on your way. After saying that, the air scales around Noah's body suddenly disappeared. That was because Noah cancelled the Dragonman incarnation and let the stone plate in his heart suddenly point to another pattern. A terrifying curse power rose from Noah's body into the sky, like an explosive wave of fire, spreading in all directions. Amidst the surging curse power, a huge figure quietly emerged. Chapter 567. Among Noah's 10 avatars, the giant was the avatar that could bring unimaginable power to the user. Using this avatar, Noah's power could even reach the level of directly destroying Tony's steel barrier. One could only imagine how terrifying the power brought by the giant avatar was. Compared to Luohao's Titan arts, Noah's giant was undoubtedly superior. However, Luohao's Titan arts could not only bring unimaginable power to the user, it could also summon 2 Vajra warriors. The existence of these 2 Vajra warriors was not because Luohao's Vajra Herculean divine art had other effects, but because Luohao's body was completely unable to display the monstrous strength of the Vajra Herculean divine art. This was to be expected. Just like how the Godspeed ability would bring an unimaginable burden to the human body, the strange power of the gods could not be completely brought out by the human body. Therefore, when Luo Hao used the Vajra Herculean arts, he wasn't able to display the full power of the Vajra Herculean arts. Only when he summoned the 2 Vajra Herculean arts could he display the full power of the Vajra Herculean arts. In the battle with Tony, after Noah used the giant avatar to destroy Tony's steel barrier, the hand that he used to throw punches was directly crippled. It was only later that he used the elf avatar to recover. In other words, Noah's giant avatar was the same. If he only relied on the human body, he would not be able to bring out the full power. Then here came the question. Since that was the case, how could Noah's giant avatar bring out the full power? The answer was the same as Luo Hao's Titan arts, which was to bring out the full power of the avatar. Bang! Amidst the violent sweeping of the surroundings, Noah's body surged into the sky, and a tall giant that was definitely more than 100 meters tall appeared. Its entire body was made of curse power, and it looked like a phantom. Wadash! Perseus's pupils slowly shrank to the size of a needle as the giant appeared. An unprecedented sense of crisis surged in his heart. What? Are you surprised now? Within the illusionary giant's body, Noah, whose entire body was burning with the massive spell power that made up the giant, slowly sneered. The surprise is yet to come. With that, the phantom giant immediately raised its thick arm. Boom! Amidst the muffled sound of an explosion, the giant's fist rubbed against the air. Even space trembled slightly as the giant's fist fiercely smashed down in the direction of Perseus. Seeing this astonishing attack, Perseus's countenance changed again and again, and the sense of crisis in his heart suddenly exploded. He would die. If he didn't dodge this attack, he would definitely die. Under such intuition, Perseus's battle-hardened body reacted faster than his consciousness. He fiercely stomped on the ground and jumped up. At the next moment, the giant's fist landed on the spot where Perseus had been. Boom! Accompanied by a terrifying tremor that sounded like the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. The ground of the entire Napoli seemed to be trembling, constantly shaking. Bang! The beach at the edge of the Napoli harbor directly burst out with a loud noise. The yellow sand in the sky was blown in all directions under the huge impact, carrying the same violent impact wind. Not only did it cover every corner of the beach, but it also rushed to the sea in the distance. Guinevere, who was still watching the battle, had a drastic change in her expression. She only had time to raise her hand, but her petite figure was blown by the violent wind. Like a lonely boat drifting in a storm, she was drowned by the violent airwaves in a scream. Amidst the overwhelming sandstorm that filled the space, only the illusionary giant seemed to be supporting this world, standing tall. It was so terrifying. Without a trace of stagnation, the giant suddenly withdrew the fist that was blasted to the ground in front of him. His movements were so flexible that he didn't look like a huge monster at all. At a speed that was many times faster than that of ordinary people. As if he wanted to catch something, he suddenly stretched out his hand, and directly put his thick giant hand into the sandstorm in front of him, pounding it hard. Boom! Under the twisting of the giant's hand, the space around the illusionary giant hand once again shook with a shock wave, pushing back the surrounding sandstorm and waves and forcibly dispersing them. Everything calmed down. In a corner of the distant sea, Guinevere, who had been blown away by the violent wind and sandstorm, finally stabilized his body. He put down his hand in front of him with lingering fear. After hesitating for a while, he used the witch's eye to let his vision leap to the distant battlefield. Therefore, the scene that appeared in Guinevere's eye of the witch made the heart of the most orthodox god ancestor, who was not afraid of the god slayer and the god of disobedience, shrink fiercely. He saw that on the beach where all the movements had calmed down, the illusionary giant was still standing there, without the slightest movement. Around the giant, the beach that should have existed had completely disappeared, replaced by a wasteland and a bottomless pit. The countless grains of sand that were originally here had all been blown away. The ground also began to crack along the bottomless pit. That scene was like a powerful missile that had just successfully landed here and detonated here, making people's hair stand on end. In the center of this wretched place, The illusory giant was still in the posture of raising a huge arm. If one observed carefully, they would find that in the giant's hand, which was composed of curse power, and made his body look somewhat illusory, a figure, like a doll that was about to be destroyed, was tightly held in the giant's palm. Surprisingly, it was Perseus. Go, being held in the giant's palm, Perseus only felt that his whole body seemed to be squeezed by something heavy from all directions. His originally handsome face was red, and he could not help but make a bitter sound. In the illusionary giant's body, Noah was still releasing an extremely large amount of curse power, turning it into the power of the giant's body. Looking up at Perseus, who was struggling in the giant's hand, Noah's eyes were surprisingly calm. In this case, this farce is over, right? Although the voice was soft, Perseus still heard it clearly. Ha ha ha. Perseus, who endured the severe pain of his body being squeezed out a weak laugh from his throat, but his eyes were fixed on Noah. Well done, God Slayer. It seems that I have to admit that this time, I have failed. Humph. Noah snorted softly and curled his lips. I'm just sending a troublemaker who appeared without permission and brought trouble to others without any self-awareness back to the place where he should be. Gods originated from the myths that represented themselves. As long as they violated the myths that they should follow and appeared on the ground, then the god would transform into the god of disobedience. And if the god of disobedience was killed, then the god of disobedience would lose his body on the ground and return to the original myth. Perhaps he would be able to appear again at a certain time in the future. Therefore, even if Perseus was killed here, Perseus would not truly disappear, but would only return to the original myth. God Slayer, do you think you can send me back to the undying myth like this? Perseus shouted loudly, I am the undying sun. The divine power of resurrection has already been restored. You can't make me return to the myth, don't you understand? You should be the one who doesn't understand. Noah laughed sarcastically. Do you think you can be resurrected? Feel what's inside your body. Hearing this, Perseus was startled. Then he seemed to have noticed something, and his expression changed abruptly. At the same time, a thick darkness spread out from Perseus' body. Aha! In the next moment, Perseus's screams echoed in the surroundings. Chapter 568. Along with Perseus' screams, a darkness deeper than the surrounding night burst out from Perseus' body like a fog and shrouded his entire body. Under the cover of this thick darkness, Perseus felt that the curse power in his body was flowing away at an extraordinary speed. Soon, he fell to the bottom of an extremely bleak valley compared to the god Slayer and god of disobedience, which made Perseus's heart tremble violently. This is Athena's. That's right, that's Athena's power. It was as if the phantom of a giant grew directly from his body. Noah released an astonishing amount of curse power while staring at Perseus, who was held in the palm of the giant and covered by the thick darkness, and said faintly, just like you left your power in Athena's body and constantly brought harm to Athena, the goddess did not want to be outdone and left her power in your body. It's just that you haven't discovered it. What? Perseus widened his eyes in disbelief. That goddess, actually. Didn't I say it before? You can only blame yourself for staring at someone you shouldn't have. Noah glanced at Perseus. The darkness of Athena hidden in your body will devour your curse power. Even if you have the authority of resurrection, if you don't have enough curse power to use the authority of resurrection, you naturally won't be able to resurrect. So Perseus, you're finished. No, it's too early to say. God Slayer. As if he really saw his death, Perseus, whose curse power was devoured by the darkness, shouted loudly, I'm an immortal god. 1 or 2 defeats are nothing at all. One day, Perseus and Mitra will still appear on the ground. If you can live until then, I will definitely come and take revenge. Really? Noah suddenly smiled. That smile was extremely cold. Then I'll look forward to the arrival of that time. After saying that, the giant, who was holding Perseus tightly in his palm, clenched his fist tightly. Pfft! The famous steel hero, was crushed like an egg under the full force of the giant's terrifying strength. Thick blood splattered all over the ground. Perseus! Death! At the same time, on the distant sea, Guinevere, who saw the scene of Perseus being crushed by the giant using the eyes of the witch, turned pale. She raised her hand, and a heavy round metal suddenly appeared in her hand. It was an alloy disc about the size of Guinevere's fist, and made of gold and black iron. Guinevere continued to stare at the surface of the metal for a while. Then, an ancient word that looked like the word sword suddenly appeared on the circular relief on the edge of the disc. Seeing this, Guinevere seemed to know something, and his eyes kept changing. Perseus is really dead. The voice that answered Guinevere's question was one that only Guinevere could hear. Guinevere didn't know whether it was because she didn't want to admit it or not. That hero's steel was left on the arrowhead disc, so there is no doubt that he has been destroyed. Lancelot's voice directly sounded in Guinevere's heart. This also proves that the hero will not be the last king to appear in this world, and he will not be the master we are looking for. Hearing this, Guinevere gritted her teeth unwillingly. Did I fail again? My beloved daughter, what you should be thinking about now is not my master's matter, Lancelot said in a deep voice. You should think about how to survive the next disaster. As soon as he finished speaking, Guinevere sensed an aura approaching. He raised his head abruptly and looked ahead. So it was you who did this? Such a voice echoed from afar and drilled into Guinevere's ears. In the sharp sound of breaking through the air, a bolt of lightning flew from a distance and stopped not far in front of Guinevere. Immediately, it slowly turned into a figure and floated in mid-air. Taking a closer look, around the figure, a whirlwind seemed to be twisting something, making the figure seem to be flying directly on the wind, as if he was walking on flat ground. That was also one of the authority of the 10 avatars, the Storm Avatar. Guinevere involuntarily took a step back in mid-air. He looked at the figure floating in front of him with a solemn face, and his voice was a little hoarse. You really came to find Guinevere? Lord Noah. Noah narrowed his eyes and looked at the alloy disc in Guinevere's hand, as if he wanted to see through Guinevere's heart. Undoubtedly, I killed Perseus, but my authority didn't change or increase at all. At that time, I knew it was you who did this. Guinevere, it seems like you're really not afraid of death. Noah's words were rather casual. There was no killing intent or hostility in them at all. However, Guinevere was keenly aware of an aura shrouding his body. It was as though he was about to be devoured at any moment. King, are you sure you want to be Guinevere's enemy? Guinevere raised the alloy disc in his hand and shouted at Noah as chills ran down his spine. This is a god relic left behind by the supreme sword god, the last king. There's an authority stored in this relic that can turn your dead kin into your own weapon, replacing bows and swords. Do you understand what this means? Noah raised his eyebrows and looked at the sword-shaped pattern on the alloy disc in Guinevere's hand. I see. You used this god relic that can store the deceased steel to absorb Perseus, who I killed. Yes, this arrowhead disc is the god relic that stores the authority summoned by the sword god. It is also the most precious treasure that has been secretly passed down through the generations of demon queens. If you use it, even Guinevere can exercise the authority of my lord and summon the deceased steel to fight for Guinevere. Guinevere said sternly. If the king intends to attack Guinevere, not only Lancelot, but even Perseus would become the king's enemy once again. Facing two powerful steel heroes, even the king would have a headache, right? Hearing this, Noah frowned. A Lancelot who could not use his full strength would not be Noah's opponent. Even if it was Perseus, even if he regained his full strength, Noah was confident that he could defeat him again. However, if Lancelot and Perseus worked together, Noah was not confident that he could defeat the two heroes of steel. Of course, that was under the condition that he did not use his trump card. Although I did not use it in the battle with Yarek and Perseus, I hope you did not forget. Noah sighed. My sword is in a state where I can draw it out at any time. Guinevere was stunned at first, then he finally remembered. 3 months ago, Noah had defeated Luo Hao Warban and Tony in one fell swoop with the sword he had used. Who? Guinevere let out a muffled cry. A golden sword that can split a godhead. Perseus is a very famous godhead. I can't be unprepared to deal with that guy's sword. Can I? Noah said as he stared at Guinevere. And I also have Lancelot's knowledge. Logically speaking, I should be able to pull out the sword. But for some reason, the sword against the Knight of the Lake in Celtic mythology could not be pulled out. So Lancelot has a secret that I don't know, isn't it? Guinevere lowered his head, trying to hide his inner turmoil. But he did not know that this behavior gave Noah the answer. Suddenly, an indescribable heavy atmosphere filled the surroundings. At a certain moment, Noah relaxed his tense body as if he had given up. Forget it, I've almost done what I need to do. There's no need to fight with the two heroes of steel anymore. Guinevere, you're lucky to have survived. After that, Noah cancelled the storm incarnation and entered the thunder mode. He turned into lightning and swept away into the distance, leaving Guinevere silent as if he had just survived a disaster. Chapter 569. Amidst the flashes of lightning, Noah, who had transformed into lightning, returned to the second-hand bookstore. Through the window of the second-hand bookstore, he entered his room and cancelled the thunder, allowing his body to slowly return to his human form. Have you returned victorious? Almost at the same time Noah returned to his human form, a cold and arrogant voice sounded from the corner of Noah's room. It seems that the means I left behind have indeed helped you greatly. Noah's figure paused, turned his head, and cast his gaze to the corner of the room. There, a petite silver-haired girl, who had unknowingly put on a Greek-style robe, had her back facing Noah. She only tilted her head, and her pair of dark eyes met with Noah's gaze. Facing Athena's gaze, Noah slowly nodded. After hesitating for a moment, he spoke softly. Have your injuries healed? The power of steel that was left in my body has already disappeared along with its master. Athena replied without turning her head. Therefore, there is no need for me to continue sleeping. As an immortal goddess, it is not difficult to recover from some injuries. Although Athena said that it would not be difficult to recover, she did not say that it had already recovered. Considering the pride of this goddess, Noah did not find it strange at all. This was a goddess who could fight back even in adversity, hiding her power in the body of her natural enemy, steel, without being discovered. In the end, she became the true cause of her enemy's death. Presumably, even if she hadn't fully recovered from her injuries, Athena would still try her best not to show her weak side in front of Noah, her mortal enemy. Of course, with Athena's power, Noah did not doubt that her injuries would quickly recover. Therefore, Noah only nodded and did not ask any more questions. At this time, Athena turned around and looked at Noah. Her snake-like eyes sized up Noah for a while before fluctuating. After killing the hero of steel, you should have obtained his power, but I don't feel any steel aura from you. You're indeed the goddess of wisdom. You can even see through this? Noah was stunned. Then he laughed bitterly. Something unexpected happened, but it's not that bad for me. My strength is enough. In the first place, Noah's 10 avatars authority was a violation of the rules. Although it was essentially just one authority, it could be used as 10 separate authorities, and each avatar would not lose to the authority of another godslayer. Under such circumstances, Noah, who possessed the authority of the 10 incarnations, already possessed many abilities. Even if he had 1 or 2 more authorities, it wouldn't have any obvious increase in strength. What Noah needed to do was to continue developing his 10 avatars. Just like the appearance of the giant, the dragonoid's air scales, and the elf's full recovery, Noah's 10 avatars' authority had already been fully explored and controlled. Since the exploration had been completed, the next step was to continue developing it. Therefore, rather than finding out that it was useless after obtaining the authority, Noah might as well focus on the power that he currently controlled. This was the way of the king. Noah, who had already confirmed his next path, raised his head and said to Athena, "Are you leaving?" That one sentence made the atmosphere at the scene become heavy all of a sudden. Our cooperation will only last until the death of steel. Is there any reason to continue staying by the side of our mortal enemy? Facing Noah's question, Athena only revealed a gaze that was not stubborn. Or do you intend to start a duel with me at this time? I don't mind. Let's forget about it, Noah replied without hesitation. I don't have the intention of attacking others when they are injured. Oh, Athena was stunned. As far as I know, Perseus is also injured. That injury was also caused by me, right? Noah spread out his hands. That doesn't count as taking advantage of others, right? You caused it. Athena frowned. If I remember correctly, the injury on Steel's body should be caused by me. The injury you left should have been mostly healed by the efforts of that man's maidservant. Since it was caused by you, is there any difference? Noah replied indifferently. We are allies. Athena was silent for a moment, then smiled knowingly. There should be a limit to your sophistry. That's the kind of person I am. Noah looked into Athena's eyes. What? Did I disappoint you? Who knows? Athena seemed to avoid Noah's gaze on purpose, and her voice became emotionless again. The fate between you and me will come to an end sooner or later. When that time comes, perhaps I will answer you. Athena was referring to the duel with Noah. Noah, who understood what Athena meant, closed his eyes and slowly opened them. Actually, I have 2 things to tell you about this. Athena did not expect Noah to change the topic, and was stunned for a moment. Then Noah took out the Gorgon's stone. First of all, you said that you want to duel with me, but the god relic that can restore your true form is in my hands. What do you plan to do? Is there a need to ask such a thing? Athena frowned slightly. Since this concubine's snake is in the hands of my fated enemy, then I will rely on the wisdom of the goddess to take it back. Isn't this also one of my duels with you, my fated enemy? What she meant was that Athena would not fight with Noah before she took back the Gorgon's stone. It seemed that Athena did not want to fight Noah, her nemesis, in a state where she had not recovered her full strength. Is that so? Noah did not argue and suddenly smiled. Then the second thing, if I win the battle with you, as the goddess of the realm of the gods, Athena should give me some spoils of war, right? It's a little strange for you to say that, Athena replied calmly. Winning the battle against the god of disobedience, and seizing the power of the opposing god of disobedience, isn't that the spoils of war for you god-slayers? But I just said that my power is enough, and I don't need more power. Noah looked straight at Athena, who was confused and finally spoke his true thoughts. So, I want to make a promise with you. A promise? Athena's eyes became serious. Her intuition told her that this so-called promise was definitely not an ordinary one. You know about the relationship between Guinevere and Lancelot, right? Noah smiled indifferently. If I win the battle with you in the future, then I hope that you can be my guardian like Lancelot and Guinevere. Athena was completely stunned when she heard this. Of course, I don't want you to appear on the ground for a very short period of time like Lancelot. I want you, Athena, to be my guardian. Noah's eyes shone brightly. I believe that since Guinevere, who used to be the goddess of earth, was able to turn Lancelot into the guardian of the godly ancestor Guinevere using the Great Guardian spell, then you, Athena, should be able to do something beyond that, right? Athena laughed coldly when she heard Noah's boastful words. Do you want this concubine to become your subordinate? I just feel that instead of killing someone close to me, why don't I make good use of our relationship? Noah put on a wanton smile on his face. You once said that there's an inexplicable connection between us. Then perhaps becoming my guardian is also a possibility for us to have a connection? Athena smiled once more. But this time, Athena's smile was unusually joyful. Since you've made such a request, then you should have the corresponding awareness, right? Athena is also a goddess of war, Noah said with a shrug. In the past, Athena had many outstanding warriors. If I can be convinced, I don't mind becoming one of them. Chapter 570. The next day, on the second floor of the second-hand bookstore, Noah, Alice, Erica, and Liliana gathered together. To be precise, it should be said that Noah called Alice, Erica, and Liliana out after dawn, and told the 3 girls that he had killed Perseus. So many things have happened without us knowing? Alice sighed softly. and there was a little dissatisfaction on her delicate and pretty face. Such an interesting thing. No, such an important thing. You actually completed it alone last night without telling me. You asked me to join in the fun. No help. The highest princess in Europe was essentially a woman who loved to join in the fun and gossip. Noah now knew this fact. Then what about Athena? Erica asked. According to what you said, isn't the goddess injured and with you? Showing her weak side in front of the enemy seems to be unbearable for the goddess. Noah took a sip of the black coffee on the table and responded casually. So last night Athena left. Of course, Noah and Athena had agreed to fight each other in the future, and the loser would become the guardian of the winner. This agreement was not mentioned by Noah. Otherwise, who knew how Alice, Erica, and Liliana would look at Noah? After all, Noah made such an agreement with Athena because of his casual nature. These days of frequent communication allowed Noah to know more about Athena, and he indeed understood the charm of this mythical goddess. Frankly speaking, it was impossible for Noah to fight with Athena, kill her, and send her back to the mythical realm. Noah really couldn't do it. In that case, it was not a bad idea to solve Athena's problem in this way. However, he didn't know how long it would take to realize it in the future. At least for now, Noah and Athena couldn't fight. Then what about Lord Guinevere? Liliana asked about the whereabouts of the last person who might affect Nabali. The problem of god Perseus has been solved. Is Lord Guinevere still in Nabali? The god ancestor probably wants to stay away from me now, right? Noah recalled the faint fear that Guinevere revealed to him last night, and said helplessly, probably, unless I directly intervene in the matter related to the last king. The god ancestor won't want to get close to me again. Alice, Erica, and Liliana suddenly exchanged glances with each other. If even Lord Guinevere has left, then Alexander will not continue to stay in Nabali, Alice said in an affirmative tone. For that man with a twisted personality, there's nothing in Napoli that interests him anymore. He must have left with Guinevere by now, right? Perseus, the god of heroes, Zugnivier, and Yerek, the Black Prince. Erica winked at Noah. Since these people are no longer here, then you're the only one left outside the norm in Nabali. That is to say, this time the matter is finally solved perfectly. Liliana couldn't help but feel a little overjoyed. Then, after Diana restores Mount Vesuvius to its original state, this incident will come to an end. Liliana's words made Alice and Erica relax. They couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. This trip to Nabali was just like the birth of the Gorgon stone 3 months ago. There were just too many things that were out of the norm. Last time, because of Athena, it attracted the attention of Luo Hao, Warban, and Tony, the 3 godslayers. This time, because of Guinevere, it led to the arrival of the twisted King Yerek, and also led to the appearance of the 2 steel heroes, Perseus and Lancelot. Such a large-scale conflict between the godslayers and the god of disobedience was very rare. Now with Noah around, it happened twice in 3 months. It was really hard to relax, and it would not be surprising if the string in his head snapped. And if you think about it carefully, Noah had a fight with Tony before he became a godslayer, and the battle of reincarnation as a godslayer was against 2 gods of the highest level at the same time. No matter how you look at it, it was not a feat that an ordinary person could accomplish. But Noah did it. Perhaps this also indirectly confirmed the law that the strong attract the strong, and those with ability are destined to be extraordinary. In short, it was the end of another big event, and Noah had finally found the world fragment, which was worth celebrating. Since it's over, the next thing should be to solve the problem of the Holy Grail, right? Alice said to Noah eagerly, I think it's better to let the Council of Sages seal the Holy Grail, so that we can put an end to Lord Guinevere's summoning of the Holy Grail and Yerek's covetousness. We can also hide and study the Holy Grail ourselves. What do you think? Suddenly Noah, Erica, and Liliana said in unison, Nothing much. Alice immediately became crestfallen. The Holy Grail was a good thing. Not to mention the Council of Sages, there was almost no one who would not be interested in it. So, even if it was to be dealt with, it would not be by the Council of Sages. As Noah's followers, Erica and Liliana felt that the Holy Grail should be dealt with by the copper black cross and the bronze black cross. However, Noah had no intention of letting anyone deal with it. "I'll keep the Holy Grail for myself first," Noah declared to Alice, Erica, and Liliana in an unquestionable tone. "I'll be leaving for a while, and I'll take the Holy Grail with me. Before I come back, you can act on your own." These words not only stunned Alice, but also shocked Erica and Liliana. "Okay, don't say anything," Noah said before Erica and Liliana could say anything. "I know what you're worried about, and I know that you're staying with me so that I won't wander around. So don't worry. I'll only be away for about a month, and I'll be back in a month." As long as he left this world, no matter how long Noah spent in other worlds, a month would have passed in this world when he returned again. Therefore, Noah's words were not considered a lie. "At least tell us where you plan to go." Erica frowned. "You're the most special seventh king. If we don't know your whereabouts, many people will feel uneasy. Can't you bring us along?" Liliana was more or less unwilling to give up. "I think we should be by the king's side. As the king, I do need your help by my side, so I won't play the role of king during the month I'm away from you." Noah smiled meaningfully. Don't worry. How could they not worry? No one would be at ease if a king of destruction was allowed to run around, right? With such thoughts in mind, Alice, Erica, and Liliana received a piece of news not long after. The harbor and beach of Nabali had inexplicably disappeared, leaving only a wasteland and a huge pit. After receiving this news, Erica and Liliana began to regret letting Noah go. Unfortunately, Noah had already left this world with the Holy Grail. In the pure white world, Noah, who was holding a huge magic holy artifact in his hand, suddenly appeared here and raised the Holy Grail in his hand. In the golden container, the broken feather trembled as if it had sensed something. As Noah's eyes suddenly lit up, the broken feather slowly separated from the Holy Grail and came into contact with another broken feather that was coming in contact with it. Ding! With a light sound, the two broken feathers joined together and became whole again. Like a cheerful little bird, they started to wander around Noah's body. Seeing this, Noah was relieved. As expected, world fragments and world fragments would attract each other. Chapter 571. Dee dash. In a daze, Noah heard such a noise, which made Noah, who was still asleep, begin to wake up little by little and open his eyes. What entered Noah's eyes was a ceiling that he saw for the first time yesterday. Seeing this ceiling, Noah's consciousness was completely awake, and his memory was awakened little by little. "So, I seem to have come to another world, right?" Because of the rare calm morning, Noah's brain seemed to be a little slow, and even his tone was uncertain. It told others how relaxed Noah was now. But relaxing was something that couldn't be helped. Even if Noah wanted to be tense, he just came to this world not long ago. He was unfamiliar with this place, and he didn't even have an acquaintance. Naturally, there was no enemy. Why did he need to be so vigilant? In addition, once there was any danger, Noah's sensing ability would be as sensitive as the radar that found missiles. So Noah didn't need to be tense all the time. He could still relax when he needed to. Dee dash. The sound that woke up Noah was still echoing, whipping anyone around who planned to go back to sleep. Noah was the type of person who didn't sleep too much in the morning. Therefore, Noah also got up very simply. After yawning, he reached out and turned off the noisy alarm clock on the bedside. Then he looked around. This was an ordinary room with a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bathroom. The area could only be regarded as an ordinary room. In such a room, there was a bed, a small round table in the middle of the room, a writing desk, a wardrobe, and a computer. There was a refrigerator in the kitchen, and all kinds of tableware and furniture were quite complete. As a single person's residence, there was nothing to be picky about. Of course, Noah only lived here yesterday, and this was one of the rooms in an apartment. Just yesterday, Noah rented this room as his temporary residence in this world and settled down. However, Noah had been in this world for 3 days. In the past 3 days, Noah had gained a basic understanding of this world. Just like before, the world this time was also set in the modern era. Noah didn't know if there were any mysteries hidden in the darkness of such a world. However, Noah's intuition told him that this world was definitely not as ordinary as it seemed. Therefore, in the past 3 days, Noah did not go to any sparsely populated places, nor did he wander around in conspicuous places in hopes of encountering something. Instead, he sold some of the gold that Erica and Liliana had prepared for him before he left the world of the deicide for cash. Then he used his hacking skills to obtain a legal identity. Past experience had already told Noah that he didn't need to wander around. As long as he was special, he would naturally step into an extraordinary world. In addition, in the world of the God-Slayer, Noah had also encountered the super troublesome Tony because he had blindly wandered around. Naturally, Noah would learn from it. Therefore, when Noah came to this world, the first thing he did was to find a way to get money, and then find a place to settle down. By the way, he also uploaded his resume for a job on the internet. Everything was like an ordinary person. Because of his past experience, Noah learned a lot of skills to make money. Therefore, Noah, who stuffed his skills into his resume, was not worried that he would not be able to find a job. In the worst case, Noah could also be a tutor like in the world of the Knight of the Mage. With language proficiency, there were probably many people who wanted to hire Noah as a teacher. In fact, after Noah posted his resume, the most replies he received were about the job of a teacher. As for the teacher's license, in the past 3 days, Noah had already gotten it easily. The only thing that was suspicious was that Noah was a little too young. A teacher who was not even 20 years old. Many people probably doubted whether Noah really had the ability to be a teacher, and even doubted whether Noah had already graduated. Unfortunately, in terms of identity, Noah had already made all the necessary preparations in the past 3 days. He even tried his best to get his hands on the graduation photos from the university. Presumably for those aspiring youths who worked so hard to graduate from university and enter society, Noah must be someone who would make people go crazy with jealousy, right? After getting up from the bed, Noah finished the basic washing up and turned on the computer. He also checked the messages on the phone he recently bought. After a while, he helplessly shook his head. Sure enough, a teacher's job is the most. Noah's advantage was that his memory and comprehension were good. In the past, he had also read a lot of books, so his brain was filled with a lot of things. Plus, he was proficient in all the languages of the world. So naturally, Noah was the most hired teacher. A teacher is a teacher. It's not like I haven't been a teacher before. In the past, in the world of the Black Bullet, Noah personally picked up the pointer to teach the cursed child. For this, he even finished all the university courses. From this point of view, Noah could be considered as a teacher. Although he was a teacher to a group of elementary school students. Let's see what schools replied. At that moment, Noah casually swiped the mouse and looked at the names of the schools that had replied to him, intending to hire him as a teacher. He looked just like an ordinary job seeker, which was unbelievable. 3 days ago, someone even called him king. Not long after, Noah's hand movements suddenly stopped, and his eyes fixed on the name of a school. Private Horse King Academy? Seeing this school name, Noah's heart throbbed. This made Noah raise his eyebrows, and the corner of his mouth slowly curved up. I knew that even if I didn't do it deliberately, I would still encounter it sooner or later. As the beloved child of the world, once he encountered a clue that might be related to the world fragment, Noah would be able to get hints from the world. Although it was said to be a hint, in fact, it was just a kind of intuition like sixth sense. And without a doubt, now, Noah's intuition was triggered. Just like when he saw the name of Haoleing Academy in the world of absolute dual blades. This time, Noah had the same experience. Sure enough, letting nature take its course is the best way? Noah nodded secretly, and moved the mouse, clicked on the Private Horse King Academy item, and looked at the information of this academy. Walalulul dash. Since yesterday the weather had been bad. Although the rain falling from the sky could not be called a downpour. The rain was quite dense, causing a lot of water to accumulate on the ground. Potash. After coming down from his apartment, Noah opened the umbrella he borrowed from the manager and stepped into the world of rain. He held the umbrella in one hand and held the phone in the other. He constantly pressed buttons, found the map of the entire city, and followed the directions of the map, and walked in the direction of the Private Horse King Academy. The city Noah was in now was not a very prosperous city. Compared to the commercial street, the residential area was undoubtedly more extensive, and almost all of them were ordinary people's houses, full of life everywhere. Against the curtain of rain, Noah walked slowly along the aisle where there were quite a number of people. Most of the pedestrians around him were wearing school uniforms, and they seemed to be on their way to school. Otherwise, no one would be willing to run around in such a rainy day. Noah observed these students, sometimes looking at their chest, sometimes looking at the school bags they were carrying, and found that some of them were labeled Private Horse King Academy, which proved that the academy was not very far away. However, a few years ago, the Private Horse King Academy was actually an all-girls school, and not long ago, it changed to a co-ed school. Therefore, the proportion of girls in the Private Horse King Academy was much higher than the proportion of boys. Even if the lower the grade, the higher the proportion of boys, but overall, there were still more girls. This led to the closer Noah was to the Private Horse King Academy. The more uniform the students around him were, and the more girls there. In such a situation, a boy without a uniform mixed in naturally attracted a lot of people's attention. At this time, a school gate appeared in front of Noah. That was Noah's goal. Private Horse King Academy. Chapter 572. Look, that boy over there isn't wearing a uniform. He's not a student of our school, is he? Then why is he here? Could he be a transfer student? He looks kind of handsome. Yeah. Walking along the main road of Chariot King Academy, Noah was under the curious gazes of the girls around him as he listened to their whispers. Although he looked calm on the surface, he felt helpless inside. Undoubtedly, he had not even applied to be a teacher in this academy, so why was he so eye-catching? Chariot King Academy was not a combat academy, like Haolang Academy, and Noah did not have a special title like he did in Haolang Academy, so why was it still like this? Noah did not know that. To normal people he was already eye-catching enough. In terms of appearance alone, Noah wasn't considered extremely handsome, nor was he considered a standard pretty boy. However, he didn't have a common face either. From a girl's point of view, he could be considered handsome. Of course, in terms of appearance, he could only be considered slightly outstanding, but Noah had an aura that no one else could compare to. Since he was young, Noah had cultivated a calm aura in order to prevent his mana from going berserk, due to the excessive amount of mana in his body. During the year he spent in the world of the Dark Bullet, Noah often played games with people of high status, such as the Celestial Chrysanthemum Minister. Coupled with his extraordinary experiences in the worlds of Absolute Dual Blades, Night of the Magician and God Slayer, over time, his body naturally carried an extremely otherworldly temperament. After all, he was an existence that people called a king. Wasn't he? How could Noah be ordinary under the influence of what he saw and heard? Thus, with his outstanding appearance and otherworldly aura, Noah naturally received full marks in the hearts of the normal girls. Thus, as soon as he entered Chariot King Academy, the girls around him kept pointing at Noah and discussing him animatedly. A girl who accidentally met Noah's gaze even blushed, her eyes twinkling like little girls in love. As for the boys, since Chariot King Academy used to be an all-girls school, they didn't attract Noah's attention due to their small numbers. However, Noah still noticed the looks of envy and jealousy on some of their faces. As expected, after stepping into this place, I can't be ordinary even if I wanted to. Noah sighed softly, ignoring the whispers of the students around him. He held up his umbrella and walked toward the most conspicuous building on the campus. Chariot King Academy was not as luxurious as Haolang Academy, which had rented the entire artificial island as its campus, but it was still quite large. It was more than enough to be used as a school for the nobility. Other things aside, just the entrance of the school building reminded people of the hall of a medieval mansion. Whether it was the decoration or the setting, it was very good. If it was an ordinary high school, it would be really difficult to compare with this. But this way, it'll be hard to find the school administration office, right? Noah sighed again. However, for some reason, when they saw Noah's melancholy sigh, many of the girls around him shrieked, as if they had seen something precious. Noah's heart twitched. Are all normal high school girls like this? Just as Noah was about to seriously misunderstand what a normal high school was like, a strong and unusually quiet footstep approached Noah. Noah immediately turned around and looked behind him. He saw a young girl with shoulder-length black hair and a pair of glasses on her face. Her delicate face was full of intelligence, and her whole body exuded a cold and serious aura. Her walking posture was very proper and well-mannered as she approached. I am the president of Chariot King Academy's student council. My name is Jitsu Kangna. The girl who called herself Ji Chiao Kangna lowered her head at Noah and asked in a tone that was so calm that it was reminiscent of coldness. Chariot King Academy usually prohibits outsiders from entering. So may I ask why you are here? Her tone was polite, but her attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. She was very dignified, as if she was the embodiment of justice. This was Noah's first impression of the president of Chariot King Academy's student council. Upon closer inspection, one could see that behind the president of the student council, there was a girl with an outstanding height and long black hair. However, the other party was like a follower, following behind Ji Chu Kangna, without any intention of interrupting or doing anything. However, it was this pair that piqued Noah's interest. Noah's outstanding senses allowed him to detect an unusual aura and power from this pair of girls. That unusual aura was almost identical to the one Noah felt when he first met Mira, when he was young, and saw Myra's demonized hand, because she couldn't control the power of the demon in her body. This unusual power was all too familiar to Noah. Magic power. It wasn't ordinary magic power either. It was like Athena's with a deep dark magic. These two girls who looked like high school students definitely weren't ordinary high school students. As many thoughts flashed through his mind, Noah nodded at Jitsu Kangna without any change in expression. I'm here to apply for a teaching position. I didn't know the way, so I took a detour. My apologies. Teaching position. Jitsu Kangna was stunned. The surrounding students who had been paying attention to them started to chatter. That boy is here to apply for a teaching position? It can't be. He's so young. He looks about the same age as us. The average high school student was between 15 and 18 years old. Noah was already quite old compared to the average high school student. He was almost 20 years old. However, based on his appearance, Noah was indeed about the same age as the average high school student. It wasn't strange that others would be so surprised. Noah had already expected this. I didn't mean to disturb your classes, Noah said to Jitsu Kangna. So, can you tell me how to get to the school office? My apologies. Only then did Ji Chutsongna react. His attitude became more respectful towards his teacher. If that's the case, I'll lead the way for you. Hearing this, Noah smiled. Thank you very much. Everything that happened next started to make sense. Because Noah had already uploaded his resume and received a reply. When he came to the school affairs office, he just showed his teaching license and communicated with the dean of the academic affairs office. After confirming that he was a real teacher, he was successfully admitted. The only surprise was that Noah originally thought that Horse King Academy wanted him to be a foreign language teacher, because he was proficient in languages all over the world. In the end, the dean asked Noah to be a healthcare teacher. Indeed, because Noah often had to take care of the cursed child, and because he wanted to use his own blood to create an antidote for the invasion of the protozoan virus, he had some medical knowledge. Therefore, he filled in this column on his resume. But he didn't expect to be accepted by Horse King Academy because of this. After all, Noah's medical knowledge was only a little bit. He couldn't be considered a doctor. Of course, it was still barely enough to be an ordinary healthcare teacher. Under these circumstances, Noah had no reason to reject. After agreeing, he started work that day. Up ahead is the field of Horse King Academy. After passing through the field, You can reach the school building where the students are having their classes. Because Jitsu Kangna helped to lead the way. After Noah was accepted, the dean asked the student council president to introduce the school to Noah. I'm in charge of healthcare, so the healthcare room is also my job. Accompanied by the silent girl with long black hair, Cho Kang led Noah to the infirmary while introducing Colt King Academy to Noah. The healthcare room is on the 3rd grade floor. I'll take you there. The healthcare room. Noah rubbed his nose. I'll have to trouble you then. You're welcome. Jitsu Kangna shook his head. I'm the student council president of this school. It's my duty to help you. Before he finished speaking, Jitsu Kangna was suddenly speechless and looked in front of him. Noah followed Jitsu Kangna's gaze and looked in front of him. In the next second, Noah was stunned. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.